Yo, Atlas speaking and welcome to part 20 of What If I Was Reincarnated in Naruto as a branch Hyuga and awakened the Tenseigan. Let the tale begin. Chapter 868 Samsara's Capabilities. As the three Uchihas were returning to the Uchiha district, Shinichi suddenly stated, I think Samsara is very strong, her abilities might not be inferior to Nagato's. Hearing Shinichi, Shisui and Itachi were surprised and looked at him curiously. They wanted to know the reason why Shinichi believed that Samsara was as strong as Nagato. Shinichi explained, while we were inside the laboratory, I tried to perceive her, but for some reason, I couldn't find any useful information. Something on the outer layer was cutting off my perception. It wasn't her Amitsukami cloak blocking me, it was something else. This kind of thing has only ever happened once, when I tried to perceive Nagato. Shisui and Itachi were taken aback, and looked at each other with widened eyes. Are you serious? They are aware of Shinichi's sensory skills, they are undoubtedly best in the current Uchiha clan. Even with such mastery, he couldn't find a thing about Samsara. This is indeed mind-boggling. The surprise wasn't over for Shisui and Itachi, as Shinichi continued in a hushed tone. What's more surprising is that although I am unable to sense anything about her, she is able to read everything about me. Her sensory skills are way stronger than mine. We aren't on the same level at all. Is that so? Muttered Shisui in surprise, and noting Shinichi's hushed tone, he couldn't help but ask, are you worried about something? Shinichi chuckled helplessly, even now. I can feel her perception covering us, she is watching us, our every move. Itachi was stunned, this shouldn't be possible, unless she is following us. They have already left the Forest of Death, and they have entered the village. The distance from the underground laboratory is at least 12 kilometers, such a long distance, no one's perception can cover such a distance. Shisui turned around, and after watching his surroundings for a while, she said, we aren't being followed either. Shinichi sighed, don't doubt my words. I am saying this because I can feel it even now, all three of us are in her perception, and she is watching us. Shisui was puzzled, but how can someone have such an exaggerated perception? It's a bit too much. It would have been different if it was because of Byakugan, but she has Rinnegan. Does Rinnegan also have a long-distance sight like the Byakugan? I don't know, maybe they have. Nagato also had such exaggerated perception, muttered Shinichi with a thoughtful expression, and added in a helpless tone, I don't know where boss finds these monsters. The more he understands the depths of Amitsukami, the more shocked he becomes. At this time, Itachi stated, since Curoto-san recruited her into the organization, she must be trustworthy. When they were in the laboratory, Itachi glanced at Samsara quite a few times, and he keenly noticed the way Samsara was looking at Curoto. Just from that way of looking, Itachi can determine that she is trustworthy, the reason being, he is familiar with that way of looking, because he too looks at Curoto in the same way, in admiration. He and Samsara respect Curoto and look up to him, and wouldn't betray Curoto, therefore, he believes that Samsara is trustworthy. Shisui also nodded in agreement, right, I think so too, so instead of worrying about these things, why don't we think about how to deal with the trouble we are about to face in a few days? Yeah, fine. It's not like I don't trust her or anything. I was just telling you about her abilities. Muttered Shinichi and added with a shrug, as for the matter of trouble, what's there to discuss? No matter what angle you look at, the boss is the most suitable choice to be Godame Hokage. Anyone else wouldn't sit right with me, and I don't think anyone else is capable of dealing with all the troubles. Shisui and Itachi nodded together, yes. Both of them have the same thought. In their view, only when a strong, neutral, and open-minded Hokage like Curoto leads the village will they be able to end the gap between the Uchiha clan and the village. Continuing such a discussion, the three Uchiha made their way towards the Uchiha district. Forest of Death. Karen suddenly opened her eyes, and said, Curoto-sama, they have safely returned to their homes. Good work. Nodded Curoto as he patted Karen. Karen smiled shyly for being praised, he. She was happy that she could be of some use to Curoto. She has trained hard for this. Suddenly she remembered something, and spoke, Curoto-sama, but there is a problem. Shinichi-san was able to notice that I was watching them. Curoto shook his head, it doesn't matter. And added, but you must train more so that no one can notice you in the future, understand? Karen nodded obediently, yes. In addition to her special physique that can heal others' wounds upon bite, Karen is also capable of using the mind's eye of the Kagura, allowing her to sense anything from exceptional distances, making her a human-shaped radar. In the canon, Sasuke used Karen's sensory abilities to lock Danzo's accurate position and carried out his surprise attack. After that, during the Fourth Great Shinobi War, Karen could sense that Sasuke was close to death and that someone with a nasty chakra, Kabuto, was with Sasuke. And now that she has awakened the Rinnegan, Karen's mind's eye of the Kagura has become stronger. Despite being only 11 years old, she can cover the entire Konoha within her perception, and her perception is invisible to most of the shinobis. Only those with exceptional perception skills like Uchiha Shinichi can notice her perception at this stage, and that too only because they were in close contact with her for a while. If not for that, feeling her perception is very difficult. Since they have safely returned, we should also go back, stated Curoto as he took Karen back to Anchor Vantion. Noon of the next day, Kakashi came to visit Curoto. Curoto was surprised to see Kakashi visit him, and after welcoming him into the house, he asked, "Are you sure you should be walking this early?" Kakashi nodded, "It's fine. Under Tsunade-sama's careful treatment, my injuries have almost healed." Under normal circumstances, it would have taken more than 2 to 3 months for Kakashi to recover from his injuries, but because of Tsunade's treatment, Kakashi has completely recovered in such a short span of time. This clearly shows that Tsunade Heim has put a lot of effort into healing Kakashi. In fact, she has used quite a lot of chakra from her In Seal to heal Kakashi as fast as she has done. Curoto nodded, "All right if you say so." Then he poured a cup of tea for Kakashi and asked, "So, you have come to visit me just after being released from the Konoha hospital. I wonder what brought you here." Kakashi muttered as he looked down, "I don't know." Curoto raised his brow, "You don't know?" Kakashi nodded with a sigh, "After I was discharged from the Konoha hospital, I did not know where to go or what to do. I was just walking, and before I knew it, I was in front of your house." Curoto blinked, "Is that so?" Nodded Kakashi as he took a sip of tea. Curoto did not know how to respond to Kakashi. The two sat in silence as they drank tea. Suddenly, Kakashi spoke, "I am sorry." Curoto asked, "What for?" Kakashi replied as he raised his head, "I heard about your agreement with Hokage-sama." "Oh," muttered Curoto. Kakashi continued, "It's unfair to you." Curoto shook his head, "Not really. It would have been unfair if I wanted the power, but truly, I have no such desires. Besides, I received appropriate compensation. So, there is no need for you to apologize." Hearing Kuroto's response, Kakashi stopped apologizing. Instead, his expression became solemn as he said, "We have to be prepared. There may be a coup." Curoto nodded, and glanced at Kakashi. In fact, Curoto believes that the main reason why the vote of confidence has been postponed so long was to give Kakashi time to recover from his injuries so that they could easily deal with the Uchiha clan. After pondering for a while, Curoto asked, "Is the date finalized?" Kakashi nodded, "Tomorrow Sandaime-sama will release the notice, and the day after tomorrow will be the vote of confidence." "Well, that's fast," muttered Curoto in surprise. He assumed that Sandaime-sama would delay for a while, but he did not expect that just today Kakashi would be released from the Konoha hospital, and the day after tomorrow would be the vote of confidence. This could only mean one thing: Uchiha clan must be putting pressure on him. Kakashi stared at Curoto, and said with a smile, "Curoto, by this time 2 days later, you will be Hokage, Godame Hokage of Konoha." "Godame Hokage of Konoha," muttered Curoto a little dazed. Chapter 869 Vote of Confidence. 2 days later, the entire Konoha village fell into a frenzied excitement. After the crowing of the rooster at dawn, people began to leave their houses in the early morning and made their way towards the Hokage building. As they shoveled through the streets and alleys, the groups of 2s and 3s became a steady stream of people. The laughter of children, the giggling of ladies, the arguments and discussions along with the cries of vendors could be heard, creating a lively and enthusiastic atmosphere. What do you think? The Uchiha or the Hyuga? Which one will become the next Hokage? I think it should be the patriarch of the Uchiha clan. Makes sense, after all, he has the Manjikyu Sharingan. Yes, the Manjikyu Sharingan of the Uchiha clan is really strong. Others don't stand a chance. But didn't Hyuga Curoto defeat Uchiha Shisui? He too possesses the Manjikyu Sharingan, but he lost. That is to say, Hyuga Curoto might not lose. But I feel that his chances are not that high. The one who is more likely to win is Uchiha Fugaku. After all, trickery can only take you so far. In front of absolute power, it can't help much. It's a pity the last round was cancelled, otherwise, we would have been able to see an amazing battle. The focus of everyone's discussion is naturally the next Hokage. Whether Uchiha or Hyuga? Most of them are ordinary villagers who have no way of obtaining inside information, and they do not understand the mentality of the top level of Konoha. Therefore, for them, the Uchiha Patriarch, who has a Manjikyu Sharingan, has a higher chance of winning compared to a member of the branch family of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Curoto. Listening to the discussions of the villagers passing through the streets, Uchiha Shin, in charge of maintaining the law and order, grinned happily. Undoubtedly, the battle between Fugaku and Kakashi has elevated the prestige of the Uchiha clan, and the villagers have come to realize the power that the Uchiha clan possesses. Proud and happy, Shin glanced at the Hokage rock as his eyes swept past the Shodame, Nidame, Sandame, and Yondame. He muttered with an ecstatic grin, the Uchiha clan will finally have a Hokage. Fugaku-sama has really done it. At this moment, a large group of shinobis dressed in all black walked through the main street with an imposing aura. As everyone noticed the arrival of this large group of shinobi, they took 2 steps back and made way for this group of shinobi. Some villagers even went as far as to lower their heads in awe and respect. The Uchiha clan, someone muttered in the crowd. That's right, this group of shinobi is none other than the Uchiha clan. The one walking at the forefront of the group is Uchiha Fugaku. Carrying a proud, fierce smile, he made his way towards the Hokage building. Beside Fugaku, his wife Uchiha Mikoto, and their 3 children Itachi, Sasuke, and Kiyomi are present. After that, Shisui and Shinichi. Behind Shinichi and Shisui are the other senior shinobi of the Uchiha clan, including elite Jonins, and special Jonins. Noting the arrival of his patriarch and fellow clansmen, Shin bowed to Fugaku. I wish Patriarch the best of luck. The position of Godame Hokage is yours to take. Fugaku nodded lightly, Feeling the majestic aura exuding from Fugaku, Shin became more respectful, and after another deep bow, he took a step back. As he saw everyone looking at his father in awe and respect, Sasuke felt happy in his heart. We are indeed the strongest. He thought as a proud smile graced his face. As his tender age, his understanding of what Hokage actually means and signifies is quite superficial, but this does not prevent him from enjoying the way everyone's awe-inspiring gazes and fearful looks. I must also work harder. I cannot allow Otosama's reputation to be affected because of my lack of ability. He is going to become Hokage, and as the son of Hokage, I must also become exceptional, thought Sasuke as determination to work harder than anyone else took root in his heart. Not long after the Uchiha clan had passed, another large group of shinobis appeared as they made their way towards the Hokage building. Different from Uchiha's black, these were dressed in white that matched the color of their pupils. Looking at the incoming ninjas with Byakugan, Shin muttered to himself in annoyance, be proud while you can, and enjoy all you can. From tomorrow, I am going to make sure that you guys keep your head bowed in front of Uchiha. The ones incoming are the Hyuga S, known for their unique Byakugan Kekkei Genkai. Walking at the forefront is none other than the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hayashi. Behind Hayashi are the elders of the main family of the Hyuga clan. Although they were reluctant to support Curoto in the Hokage campaign, at Hisashi's insistence, they had no other choice but to come even if unwillingly. This is the first time someone from the Hyuga clan has come so close to becoming Hokage, and Hayashi did not want to miss such an opportunity. Behind the elders of the main family, Hinata and Hanabi were walking with their caretakers Ko and Natsu. These four are followed by a group of the League Jonins, and Special Jonins from the branch family of the Hyuga clan. The one leading the branch family is obviously Hisashi, and walking beside him are his wife and excited Niji. After Hiruzen and Curoto reached an agreement, Sandaime decided to release Hisashi. After all, Curoto was about to become the Godame Hokage. If they continued to detain Hisashi, it wouldn't look good for the prestige of the new Hokage. Anyway, as the Hyuga clan passed by, Shin was surprised. Huh? He did not come? There was no sign of Curoto in the Hyuga group, and this made Shin feel a bit weird. Kuroto's home. While arranging Kuroto's hair, Yui murmured in a worried tone, "Kuroto-kun, do we really need not arrive early? Today is the vote of confidence. We can't be late for such an important thing. What if they start without you, and you lose because we were not there on time?" Obviously, Yui is unaware of the agreement. Curoto smiled. "Why are you panicking? The main protagonist always arrives at last. So there is no need to worry, they won't start without me." "If you say so," muttered Yui. As Yui looked at Kuroto's handsome face in the mirror, she was dazed for a moment. "Kuroto-kun? Will your face be carved on the Hokage rock as well?" "Of course," nodded Curoto with a smile. To be honest, she is still not used to the fact that Curoto is one of the two people who are likely to become Godame Hokage of Konoha. There are times when she is walking through the streets or going somewhere, and people enthusiastically greet her with respect, making her unsure how to react. Everything feels surreal, as if a dream. It's all because of Kuroto-kun. Unexpectedly, you have so far. There was a time when you couldn't even defeat me, and now you might even defeat the Uchiha Patriarch and become Hokage. Yui suddenly lowered her head with a foolish smile. Curoto asked curiously, "Why are you smiling?" Yui answered, "I am thinking of choosing the best sculpture in the shinobi world for sculpting your face on the Hokage rock." Chapter 870 Vote of Confidence 2. Bang bang. As the fireworks spread colorful burst in every direction, the bustling square in front of the Hokage building came alive with an electric atmosphere. The air was thick with anticipation and excitement, as a multitude of voices melded together, creating a cacophony that reverberated through the very core of the bustling gathering. The harmonious convergence of diverse voices created a symphony of sound, akin to a resounding crescendo that surged through Konoha. The collective murmurings, exclamations, and cheers blended into a unified chorus, ascending into the open expanse above. Like mighty thunderclaps punctuating a serene and cloudless sky, this tremendous sound wave echoed persistently, enveloping the surroundings with undeniable energy. As the air crackled with excitement and the resounding echoes filled the square, the atmosphere pulsated with an intoxicating blend of joy, anticipation, and reverence. It was a momentous occasion, the day the Godame Hokage of Konoha will be chosen. Perched atop the roof of the Hokage building, Jiraiya surveyed the bustling square, brimming with celebratory fervor, and couldn't help but reminisce, murmuring, "It feels just like the last time." Back then, Namikaze Minato and Orochimaru were the celebrated figures. Fresh from the conclusion of the Third Great Shinobi War, the Konoha villagers poured their enthusiasm into the Yondaime Hokage election, resulting in a day as vibrant as the present one. Recalling those memories, Jiraiya's lips curved into a faint grin. Beside Jiraiya, Tsunade focused her attention on Uchiha Fugaku, also standing on the rooftop of the Hokage building. Observing Fugaku's confident expression and the intensity of his smile, Tsunade's brows furrowed. It wasn't the outcome of the vote of confidence that concerned Tsunade, but rather the aftermath of Fugaku's loss. The more confident a person is, the harder they fall upon failure. Handling an irrational Fugaku would prove challenging. As a member of the Senju clan, Tsunade understands better than most that the Uchiha are driven by intense emotions. If their emotions spiral out of control, there is seemingly no limit to what they might do. It would have been manageable if it were solely Fugaku, but standing beside him are Shursui and Shinichi. Considering the possibility of an Uchiha rebellion, Tsunade perceives a bleak future. After all, facing 3 Manjikyu Sharingan users, Fugaku alone being troublesome enough, not to mention Shursui and Shinichi with their enigmatic Manjikyu Sharingan abilities, Konoha would undoubtedly suffer irreparable damage. I can only hope that Fugaku won't rebel immediately. Tsunade thought inwardly with a sigh. How long will it take for him to arrive? Asked Hiruzen with a frown. It was getting late. The time to start the vote of confidence was almost there, yet there is no sign of Curoto. This dissatisfied him a little. We have already sent a team to escort Curoto-sama. He must be arriving any time, answered the Umbu. Hiruzen nodded lightly, then glanced at Fugaku not far away from the corner of his eyes. Although he has taken the worst situation into consideration and prepared countermeasures accordingly, Hiruzen can't help but feel uneasy. The Uchiha family possessing 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan simultaneously is an unprecedented occurrence in Konoha's history. Even the Shodame Hokage, who founded the village, never encountered such a challenging situation. Hiruzen reckons that even if the Yondaime were still alive, it would be difficult to contain the Uchiha clan's ambitions in the present day. Moreover, the power of the Hokage faction has diminished compared to earlier times. The Uchiha Patriarch's victory over Kakashi, who is considered the most skilled among the younger generation, in front of Konoha's villagers during the first phase of the Hokage election further complicates matters. With the announcement of the Godame Hokage's appointment today, the future of Konoha remains uncertain. Even the Sandaime, who had the longest reign as Hokage, cannot predict what lies ahead for the village. Sensing Sandaime's discreet glances, Fugaku spoke in a deep, commanding tone. It is time. Let us commence. A Jonin, responsible for overseeing the proceedings of the Hokage campaign, spoke with a pleasant smile. We are still awaiting the arrival of Hyuga Kuroto-sama. Please bear with us for a little longer. Fugaku expressed his displeasure with a disdainful snort, remarking, if he hasn't arrived yet, it can only be assumed that he has chosen to withdraw from the vote of confidence. The MC, sensing the tension, forced a somewhat awkward smile and responded, but we cannot make assumptions unless Hyuga Kuroto-sama explicitly states his decision. Suddenly, a commotion erupted within the crowd gathered at the square, prompting the villagers to instinctively retreat to the sides, creating a several-meter-wide passage amidst the bustling square. The occupants of the Hokage building swiftly caught wind of the shift in the atmosphere and turned their gazes towards the unfolding scene. There, they beheld Hyuga Kuroto, accompanied by Hyuga Yui, leisurely strolling towards the Hokage building along the path naturally formed by the parting crowd. Kuroto's countenance remained composed, almost as if he were unaffected by the weight of being one of the Hokage candidates. In contrast, Yui's face flushed with embarrassment, and under the watchful eyes of the onlookers, she followed Curoto with her head lowered and took small, hesitant steps. The slight disarray in the movement of her hands betrayed her nervousness at that moment. Finally, he has arrived. Simultaneously, a sense of relief washed over the members of both the Hokage faction and the Hyuga clan as Hyuga Kuroto stepped onto the scene, dispelling any concerns they had harbored. Their worries had been in vain. Uchiha Fugaku fixed his gaze upon Curoto, his expression betraying a mixture of uncertainty and contemplation. Having escorted Yui to the rooftop of the Hokage building, Curoto and Yui proceeded to bow respectfully to the daimyo of the Land of Fire, who was positioned on the viewing platform adjacent to the building. Then, Sandaime, in a resounding voice, declared to the assembled villagers in the square, I hereby announce the official commencement of the vote of confidence for the election of Konoha's Godame Hokage. In response to Sandaime's announcement, a massive ballot box was carefully maneuvered by several Umbu operatives and placed at the main entrance of the Hokage building. The ballot box, standing at half a person's height, bore intricate engravings of various sealing techniques. Despite the penetrating vision of the Hyuga clan's Byakugan, even they could not discern what was transpiring within the impenetrable walls of the box. With the arrival of the ballot box, the line of Jonin, which had formed in an orderly fashion, commenced the voting process. In accordance with Konoha's tradition, all active and retired Jonin, as well as special Jonin, are eligible to participate in this vote of confidence. However, the number of participating ninjas was relatively small. The Jonins, who serve as the commanding officers, constitute the backbone of Konoha's 10,000-plus ninjas, yet their proportion in relation to the overall number of Konoha ninjas is quite low. Chapter 871 The Powerful Uchiha Clan. The scarcity of Jonin is precisely why both factions in the campaign prioritize the favor of the renowned shinobi clans. These clans are considered great due to their extensive history, access to abundant resources, and vast knowledge that creates an optimal environment for training and cultivating Jonin-level ninjas. These distinguished clans possess a wide range of ninjutsu and secret techniques developed by their ancestors. These techniques have been refined and enhanced over generations, while their battle tactics have been tested and proven on war fronts. Additionally, some clans even possess unique abilities known as Kekkei Genkai. In comparison, individuals from commoner backgrounds have a relatively low representation among Jonin, and it is rare for them to attain the status of elite Jonin. Of course, figures like Namake's Minato, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya are exceptions to this trend, but there is a very good reason they achieve such remarkable strength. It's not just their innate talent that enabled them to reach such levels, it's also because of the proper nurturing they received. However, not every commoner has been fortunate enough to receive the same opportunities as these few exceptional individuals. Consequently, Jonin of commoner origin often have certain shortcomings or flaws that prevent them from advancing beyond the rank of special Jonin. In fact, it is accurate to say that the majority of special Jonin hail from commoner backgrounds. This rank was established to provide commoners with a chance to rise through the ranks. During the vote of confidence, it is relatively easy for any clan, regardless of its size, to present a few Jonin members. Among the diverse range of ninjas from various clans, a significant number have retired either due to disabilities or old age. However, despite their retirement, they retain their Jonin status and are fully entitled to participate in the vote of confidence. As the voting continued, a sudden commotion erupted in the square. The cause of the uproar was the sight of a large group of Uchiha clan Jonin walking towards the ballot box at the main entrance of the Hokage building. "Oh my god, there are so many Jonin in the Uchiha clan," exclaimed one bewildered observer. "Are all these Uchihas Jonin? Could it be some kind of mistake?" questioned another in disbelief. "Don't be foolish. The Sandaime-sama is observing from above, and there are ANBU ninjas diligently verifying the tickets next to the ballot box. It's impossible for the Uchiha clan to resort to such low-level tricks," retorted a villager, dismissing any doubts about the Uchiha clan's integrity. In the past, the villagers had always heard that the Uchiha clan was the foremost clan in the village, but they had never truly grasped its power. Ordinary villagers lacked an intuitive understanding of the clan's strength. However, witnessing the gathering of Uchiha clan Jonin in such numbers to put their vote in the ballot box, the villagers finally realized that the Uchiha clan was indeed deserving of its status as the most powerful clan in the village. From the rooftop of a tall building overlooking the square, Sasuke pointed towards the approaching Uchiha Jonin and addressed his friends Naruto, Neji, and others who were with him. He exclaimed, "Do you see them? Those are all the Jonin from my clan." Naruto let out a sigh and replied, "Sasuke, your clan has so many powerful individuals." Neji furrowed his brow slightly, surprised by the sheer number of Uchiha Jonin gathered. It exceeded his expectations. Unlike the Hyuga clan, the Uchiha clan doesn't have a large number of individuals who possess awakened dojutsu. Only those with exceptional talent are capable of awakening their eyes. This is why almost all Uchiha shinobi who possess dojutsu are considered elite. As long as they survive and continue to grow, their Sharingan will eventually evolve into the Three-Tomo Sharingan, signifying their strength reaching the level of Jonin and Elite Jonin. Following the decline of the Senju clan, the Uchiha clan became the strongest clan in Konoha, both in terms of the quality and quantity of Jonin. This is the very confidence that fuels their rebellious murmurs. If not for this strength, the Uchiha clan members would not be constantly discussing rebellion. In reality, even this exaggerated number of Uchiha Jonin is a result of secret restrictions imposed by the Sandaime-sama on the Uchiha clan. Many Uchihas who are observing from the sidelines already meet the necessary requirements for promotion to the ranks of Jonin or Special Jonin. However, due to various reasons, they have been kept at the level of Chunin or elite Chunin. Observing the staggering number of Uchiha Jonin, Hinata nervously tugged on Niji's sleeve and asked, "Niji and I-san, will Kuroto-sama?" Niji furrowed his brow but reassured Hinata with a smile, saying, "Don't worry, Hinata-sama. Sensei, he will definitely not lose." Sasuke pouted at Niji's words and retorted, "Don't be stubborn, Niji. Just wait and watch. The one who will win the vote of confidence and become the Godame Hokage will be my Ota-san." On the rooftop of the Hokage building, Uchiha Fugaku observed the Uchiha members voting in groups below. A smirk formed on his lips as he cast aggressive glances towards Curoto, Sandaime-sama, and the elders. He then gave orders to those around him, including Mikoto, Itachi, Shisui, and Shinichi, saying, "You all go down and vote as well." Mikoto nodded in agreement, and she and Itachi proceeded to descend first, followed by Shisui and Shinichi. They swiftly made their way towards the ballot box to cast their votes. Observing 4 more Uchiha Jonin heading to vote, Tsunade glanced dissatisfiedly at Sandaime-sama. She wanted to express her frustration and question why he had promoted so many Uchiha clan members to the rank of Jonin. Sandaime let out a sigh and shook his head. He had no other choice in the matter. The Uchiha clan had numerous ninjas who met the requirements for promotion to the rank of Jonin. Although he had implemented restrictions, there were limits to how much he could restrain their advancements. This predicament had begun when Shisui and Shinichi awakened their Manjikyu Sharingan one after another. Subsequently, more individuals within Amitsukami and the Akatsuki organization appeared with Manjikyu Sharingan. Since then, something has changed within the Uchiha clan. They had all thrown themselves into intense training and diligent work, resulting in a visible increase in their overall strength over the past decade. If not for the fact that several elite Uchiha members had been killed or kidnapped by Amitsukami and Akatsuki, the numbers would be even higher. It was also possible that 1 or 2 more awakeners of the Manjikyu Sharingan had emerged within their ranks. Following the Uchiha clan's display of strength, a large group of Hyuga clan members made their way towards the ballot box, seemingly determined to regain momentum. Like the Uchiha clan, the Hyuga clan also boasted a significant number of Jonin members. However, in contrast to the Uchiha clan, the majority of Hyuga clan members present were special Jonin. Among the crowd, there were many elderly individuals with gray hair, some of whom required assistance from attendants to walk. A particularly frail-looking lady, who appeared to be well over 100 years old, trembled as she moved, relying on the support of 2 Hyuga clansmen to navigate. Witnessing this scene, Fugaku directed a mocking glance towards Curoto. However, Curoto remained unfazed, maintaining a calm expression on his face. Hayashi, in his efforts to ensure that the Hokage would be chosen from the Hyuga clan, had gone to great lengths. He even invited retired individuals with limited mobility and physical disabilities to participate in the voting process. These elderly Hyuga clan members had gathered here to cast their votes in support of Curoto. Observing this display of loyalty, Curoto couldn't help but smile. Chapter 872, The Results. Once the Uchiha and Hyuga clans had completed their voting, the atmosphere gradually returned to normal. Jonins from other major clans, as well as those from civilian backgrounds, stepped forward one by one to cast their votes. Despite the ongoing tension and nerve-wracking nature of the situation, there was a sense of order, and the voting process proceeded smoothly. Notably, even the Jonins who were currently on duty or away from Konoha due to mission assignments had made arrangements to ensure their votes were accounted for. They had entrusted their votes to trusted individuals acting as proxies. As a result, almost all of the Konoha Jonin, regardless of their circumstances, were able to participate in the crucial vote of confidence. On the rooftop of the Hokage building, Fugaku's gaze fixed upon the ballot box, his eyes shimmering with anticipation. A long-desired smile gradually spread across his face. His heart raced with excitement as the final vote was dropped into the box. Accustomed to suppressing his emotions, Fugaku couldn't contain his elation. The Sharingan in his eyes instinctively activated, a visible sign of his intense emotions. His body trembled slightly, his breath growing rough with the surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. Throughout the voting process, Fugaku had meticulously observed every detail, silently keeping track of the votes that favored his candidacy. By combining the votes of the Uchiha clan with the support he had garnered from other shinobi clans through discreet hints, he was confident that he held a significant lead over Hyuga Curoto, surpassing him by at least 20 votes. Even if there were slight errors during the voting and counting processes, Fugaku remained assured of his victory. The margin of error was substantial, providing him with a sense of certainty in his imminent triumph and Hyuga Curoto's defeat. As the voting period came to a close, a hushed silence fell over the once bustling square. All eyes were fixed upon the ballot box, be it the eager villagers, the vigilant Konoha ninjas maintaining order, or the shadowy figures of the Umbu operatives quietly patrolling the area. The anticipation was palpable as everyone awaited the announcement of the vote's outcome. Sandame, addressing both Curoto and Fugaku, spoke solemnly, "The voting has concluded, and now it is time to begin the vote-counting process." "Okay." Curoto nodded in acknowledgement, expressing his readiness for this crucial stage. Fugaku, on the other hand, remained silent but nodded humbly, his mind already occupied with the decisions he would need to make once he assumed the mantle of Konoha's Hokage. With the consent of the two candidates, several staff members approached the ballot box, prepared to meticulously examine and tally the votes, determining the ultimate victor of this closely watched election. On the viewing platform at the opposite end, Godame Kazekage Pakura turned to the other Kage assembled alongside her, posing a question that had been on her mind: "Who do you think will emerge victorious, Uchiha Fugaku or Hyuga Curoto?" Pakura, being a covert member of Amitsukami, possessed a certain level of insight into the internal dynamics of Konoha. However, her query was fueled by curiosity rather than any inside knowledge. She simply wished to gauge the opinions of her fellow Kage. Responding with a chuckle, Sandame Tsuchikage remarked, "Hee, isn't it evident?" Having spent the past few months in Konoha, Inoki had become well acquainted with the political landscape of the village. From the moment Sarutobi Hiruzen decided to cancel the fight between Hyuga Curoto and Uchiha Fugaku upon learning that Fugaku too possessed the Manjikyu Sharingan, and instead opted for the vote of confidence, Inoki had discerned the likely outcome of the vote of confidence. The conversation shifted as Yandame Reikage interjected, "Tsuchikage, are you saying Uchiha Fugaku will lose?" questioning Tsuchikage Inoki's insinuation about Uchiha Fugaku's potential loss. "I said no such thing." Inoki, maintaining a sly smile, evaded a direct response. I nodded as he mused to himself, expressing his hope for Uchiha Fugaku's victory. "I hope Uchiha Fugaku can win." The Reikage reasoning was straightforward. In order for the 5 Kages to effectively combat the Akatsuki organization, none of them could afford to be weak. While acknowledging Hyuga Curoto's impressive abilities, especially his wit in defeating Uchiha Shursui, the Reikage remained uncertain whether such tactics would suffice against the formidable opponents from the Akatsuki. His experiences had taught him that, in the face of absolute strength, meticulous planning could easily crumble. In comparison, Uchiha Fugaku's strength, bolstered by the possession of the Manjikyu Sharingan, appeared more reliable for facing the Akatsuki. Deep in thought, Yagura contemplated the potential consequences of Uchiha Fugaku's defeat. The massive number of Uchiha Jonin who had just voted showcased the clan's power, bolstered by 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. Their collective strength even surpassed that of some shinobi villages. If the Uchiha clan were to lose the election, unrest and upheaval seemed inevitable. Under normal circumstances, Sandame would be unwilling to take such a risk. However, Yagura speculated on whether Sandame, unaware of Curoto's true strength, would choose to compromise and relinquish the position of Godame Hokage to the Uchiha clan. As the other Kage listened to Yagura's whisper, each displayed a distinct expression. Inoki scoffed. Being the one most acquainted with Hiruzen's shrewd nature, he doubted that the former Hokage would easily give up. I maintained a pensive countenance, nodding in agreement. The Kazekage, Pakura, chose to remain silent, wearing a subtle smile, refraining from offering her own thoughts on the matter. On the rooftop of the nearby building, Naruto excitedly pointed towards the Hokage building. "Look, they are going to open the ballot box, drawing attention to the imminent opening of the ballot box. Sasuke and Neji, activating their respective dojutsu, the Sharingan and the Byakugan, focus their intense gaze on the box. Toussaint will soon become Hokage. The anticipation and longing on Sasuke's nervous face were evident as he expressed his belief that his father, Fugaku, would soon ascend to the position of Hokage. For Sasuke, this moment held great significance, as his father's victory would not only fulfill his personal desires but also solidify the Uchiha clan's standing in Konoha. The one who becomes the Godame Hokage will be Curoto sensei. Neji, on the other hand, possessed unwavering confidence in Curoto. He firmly believed that the one who would emerge as the Godame Hokage would be Curoto. Amidst the palpable anticipation, the diligent efforts of the staff culminated in the swift completion of the ticket counting process. The meticulous workers wasted no time and promptly ascended to the rooftop of the Hokage building, presenting the compiled voting results to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen received the crucial document with a mixture of curiosity and solemnity. The weight of this responsibility, knowing that the fate of Konohagakure hung in the balance, was evident in his expression. With measured composure, he carefully perused the voting results, his eyes scanning the figures that would determine the course of the village's leadership. In this pivotal moment, the atmosphere surrounding the rooftop became charged with suspense. All eyes were fixed on Hiruzen, eagerly awaiting the announcement that would reveal the chosen as the next Hokage. After a fleeting moment of anticipation, Sandaime wore a gentle smile, his eyes reflecting both pride and satisfaction. With a voice that resonated throughout the rooftop, he declared, "The results of the vote of confidence have been tallied." The weight of those words seemed to hang in the air, and Fugaku's posture stiffened as he prepared to step forward, anticipating his own name to be called. His mind was already crafting the words he would speak upon assuming the revered mantle of Godame Hokage. Yui, standing by Kuroto's side, clutched his sleeve tightly, her anxiety manifesting as a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead. Every second felt like an eternity as she anxiously awaited the outcome. Unlike Yui, Curoto exuded a confident smile as he observed the scene unfolding around him. In his eyes, the outcome of the election had already been determined long before the voting process commenced. To him, the entire electoral procedure is a mere formality, devoid of any real suspense or concern. Elder Koharu, Jiraiya, Tsunade Hime, along with other members of the Konoha Council focused their gaze upon Hiruzen, their collective breaths held in anticipation of the impending announcement. Sensing the collective anticipation, Sandaime, in his role as the voice of the village, did not prolong the suspense. After inhaling deeply, he proclaimed to the assembled crowd, "The victor of this vote of confidence is none other than Hyuga Curoto." In an instant, jubilation erupted among the ranks of the civilian background ninjas and the Hyuga clan members alike. The air was filled with resounding cheers and thunderous applause, their excitement permeating the atmosphere as they celebrated the triumph of their chosen candidate. Amidst the jubilant uproar that enveloped the scene, Uchiha Fugaku's initial elation transformed into a stunned silence, his face etched with disbelief. His mind seemed to struggle to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. Without warning, a surge of fury overcame Fugaku, his voice cutting through the celebratory atmosphere, "I demand a recount of the ballots." His outburst abruptly halted the cheers, causing all eyes to shift towards him, a mixture of surprise and curiosity on the faces of those present. Hiruzen, with a creased brow, confronted Fugaku, his tone tinged with a hint of concern. "Fugaku, do you doubt the integrity of our village?" Before Fugaku could respond, Mikoto reached out and clutched his sleeve, her touch a plea for restraint. Fugaku's seething anger was momentarily quelled as he locked eyes with Hiruzen, silently conveying his meaning. Recognizing Fugaku's meaning, Hiruzen deliberated for a brief moment, then nodded, "Very well, if you have doubts, you may conduct a personal recount of the votes." An eerie hush enveloped the rooftop as Fugaku proceeded towards the ballot box, the weight of the onlookers' silent gaze intensifying the gravity of the moment. No one dared to utter a word as they anxiously awaited the outcome. As Fugaku closed the distance to the ballot box, his inner voice echoed with determination, "No! This cannot be. The votes were in my favor. They must have manipulated the count. There is no way I could have lost." It's inconceivable. Chapter 873 Godame Hokage, Hyuga Curoto. The radiant smile that adorned Yui's face tensed, overshadowed by Fugaku's doubts regarding the vote's outcome. For Yui, the prospect of Curoto ascending to the position of Godame Hokage was nothing short of a dream, exquisite and fantastical. Despite the sweetness of this dream, she couldn't help but feel an undercurrent of unease, particularly now with Fugaku approaching the ballot box. Her nerves were palpable as she tightly gripped Curoto's cuffs, seeking solace in the touch of Curoto's hand. In a soothing voice, he reassured her, "Don't worry." Yui nodded, though her anxious gaze remained fixated on the ballot box. As Fugaku steadily approached the ballot box, a semblance of calm washed over him. He had come to realize that there couldn't possibly be any discrepancies in the vote of confidence results. Exposing any foul play would be far too easy, especially considering the Uchiha members he had discreetly arranged to be part of the staff responsible for ballot inspection. However, a troubling question lingered: why had he, the expected victor, suffered a defeat? Doubt seeped into Fugaku's mind as he arrived at the ballot box. He contemplated whether one of the shinobi clan who had pledged their support had betrayed him. Seeking answers, he turned to the Uchiha individuals he had positioned within the ticket-checking team. Their somber expressions and swift head-shaking only deepened his frustration. Ignoring them, Fugaku meticulously examined each vote cast by the Jonin, his countenance composed, albeit seething with growing anger. Unbeknownst to him, his fury turned his Sharingan into the Manjikyu Sharingan, its crimson radiance mirroring his inner turmoil. These treacherous people! Fugaku's inner voice thundered, his anger transmuting into an overwhelming aura of malevolence. The palpable killing intent emanating from him permeated the air, causing even the nearby Umbu operatives to brace themselves and the Uchiha clansmen involved in the vote-counting process to instinctively recoil in fear. In their eyes, the chakra coursing through Fugaku had turned as icy as the depths of winter, sending shivers down their spines. Boom! In a fit of rage, Fugaku forcefully overturned the long table on which the tickets were arranged, his heavy breaths punctuating the charged atmosphere. With seething eyes, he glared at the distant clan patriarchs who had insinuated their allegiance to him, now avoiding his piercing gaze. Gritting his teeth, Fugaku's voice tripped with icy contempt as he coldly shouted, "You traitors! I will ensure you understand the consequences of deceiving the Uchiha clan." The result was a stark departure from his expectations. It wasn't a marginal difference of 1 or 2 votes, nor even a moderate gap of 10 or 20. Instead, it amounted to several dozen votes, revealing a chilling reality: hardly anyone, aside from the Uchiha clansmen themselves, had cast their vote in his favor. Such a scenario could only arise from one situation: each and every individual who had privately pledged their support had treacherously betrayed him. Fugaku, ensnared in a web of deception, not only felt defeated but also deeply humiliated. As someone accustomed to restraining his emotions, he could no longer contain his anger. The weight of being manipulated fueled the flames of his fury, shattering his emotional restraint. On the rooftop of the Hokage building, realization dawned upon Curoto as he observed the seething Fugaku below, brimming with murderous intent. He cast a knowing glance at the Sandaime-sama standing beside him and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. "It appears that you went a step too far, Sandaime-sama." Undoubtedly, Hiruzen employed subtle tactics during the vote canvassing process to ensure stability within the Uchiha clan and buy time to handle potential rebellions. These methods clouded Uchiha's judgment and led Fugaku to believe that victory in the vote of confidence was assured. However, the issue lay in Sandaime's actions, for he had gone beyond merely securing Curoto's win. Instead, he orchestrated a resounding defeat for the Uchiha clan, perhaps to push them to relinquish any aspirations for the position of Konoha's Godame Hokage. This extreme outcome could only be explained by the village's employment of certain means, such as ambiguous remarks made by certain people to Fugaku, leading him to believe he was being supported and encouraging him to invest more effort into his campaign. In pursuit of his own agenda, Sandaime had gone to great lengths to humiliate Fugaku, a territory he shouldn't have stepped into, in my personal opinion, muttered Curoto, shaking his head at the foolishness of it all. It was a foolish move to toy with the pride of the Uchiha clan and manipulate them like puppets, even for someone as indecisive as Fugaku. Such treatment would undoubtedly push him toward rebellion. Indeed, this crushing defeat had shattered all hopes of the Uchiha clan to rightfully claim the position of Godame Hokage. In doing so, the village willingly abandoned negotiations and passively acknowledged the Uchiha's inclination to rebel, thus initiating preemptive measures and positioning the Uchiha as their target. The village's actions had relinquished any opportunity for a peaceful resolution. In Curoto's perspective, Sandaime-sama's judgment was clouded by his deep-seated distrust of the Uchiha clan, preventing him from finding a better solution to the problem at hand. Curoto believed that when Fugaku proposed restarting the campaign for the Godame Hokage, the village should have set aside its prejudices and supported Shisui as the ideal candidate. Despite not being formally trained by the Hokage faction, Shisui was technically a member and had unquestionable loyalty to their cause. Furthermore, he was widely regarded as the strongest combatant among the 5 great nations, making him an excellent choice. However, the main hurdle in considering Shisui is Koto Amitsukami, an incredibly powerful genjutsu capable of subtly manipulating the will of others without their awareness. This raised concerns about the need for heightened caution around Shisui if he were to become Hokage. Despite these concerns, Curoto firmly believed that if Shisui assumed the Hokage mantle, there would be no need to worry about Koto Amitsukami being misused. Additionally, it would have prevented the situation from escalating to its current extent, alleviating the strain placed upon the Uchiha clan. Nevertheless, the deeply ingrained prejudices and biases that had developed over the course of a decade were not easily dispelled. It was precisely due to these lingering prejudices that the village found itself in its present predicament, and Sandaime missed the opportunity to choose a candidate like Shisui who could have been accepted by both sides as the Godame Hokage. As the Uchiha clansman standing by the ballot box approached Fugaku, he inquired, "Patriarch Sama, what should we do now?" Fugaku, fully aware of being ensnared in a meticulously crafted conspiracy, merely turned his head to cast a frigid glance at the occupants of the Hokage building. With an ice-cold tone, he curtly replied, "Let's go." Leading his clan members, Fugaku departed with an air of authority, without bothering to exchange pleasantries. Observing Fugaku's departure, Curoto couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. The problem lies not only with Sandaime-sama but also with the Uchiha patriarch, who failed to discern such a straightforward scheme. "He truly isn't suited for this role," Curoto lamented. He couldn't comprehend why Fugaku believed that merely revealing his Manjikyu Sharingan in public and earning admiration by defeating Kakashi would automatically guarantee acceptance and support from members of all clans for his bid as the next Hokage. Shaking his head in disappointment, Curoto recognized the grave consequences of such misjudgment for someone aspiring to assume the momentous responsibility of Hokage. Such a miscalculation can prove fatal, he thought to himself. As Fugaku and the rest of the Uchiha clan vanished from sight, Sandaime-sama once again declared Kuroto's victory in the vote of confidence. Before he could continue, Yui's jubilant cry interrupted him. "Congratulations, Kuroto-kun. You have become Hokage. You truly are Hokage now." Her eyes welled up with tears as she expressed her heartfelt wishes. At that moment, Sandaime approached Curoto, ceremoniously draping him with the Godame Hokage Haori and taking off his own Hokage hat to place it upon Kuroto's head, an act met with a smile from the newly appointed Hokage. After the formalities were concluded, Sandaime addressed Curoto, saying, "Kuroto-kun, from this moment onward, you are the Godame Hokage of Konohagakure. Please govern with care and protect our village." Instantly, the square erupted with applause and cheers. Overwhelmed by the moment, Curoto, now adorned with the Hokage Haori and the Hokage hat, found himself momentarily dazed as the resounding applause and jubilation filled his ears. Surprisingly, here I am, the one who was left in the village by Orochimaru as a spy due to the seal on my forehead, now standing as the Hokage. Curoto marveled inwardly. The realization of his newfound position sparked a curious thought in his mind. What kind of expression would grace Orochimaru's face when he learns that his former subordinate has ascended to the esteemed role of Godame Hokage? Would the legendary Sannin be stunned into silence? Regardless of the response, Curoto's rise to Hokage served as a testament to his growth, as well as a stark reminder of how far he had come from his days under Orochimaru's tutelage. Chapter 874 Unforeseen Ascension. As the distant sound of firecrackers echoed through the air and the cheers of the crowd reverberated across the village, Madara stood at the edge of a cliff outside Konoha village, wearing his distinctive red and black mask. Beside him stood Hyuga Aoki, who had recently defected from Konoha. However, Aoki's calm and unsupported standing posture indicated that he was not the real Aoki, but rather a puppet that closely resembled his original body. Despite Shinichi's disruptive actions, Aoki managed to form an alliance with the Akatsuki organization. In exchange for providing information about Yama, the Amitsukami organization, and the Otsutsuki clan, he received a powerful puppet as a valuable asset. With his Byakugan activated, Aoki observed the scene from a distance, and a smile played on his lips. "It appears that the Godame Hokage has been elected," he remarked. The Byakugan embedded in the puppet's eye sockets did not belong to Aoki himself. It had been taken from the Hyuga elder whom Aoki had assassinated a few years ago during his ill-fated attempt to access the forbidden section of the Hyuga clan's domain. However, due to the considerable distance, even with the high purity of the Byakugan, Aoki was unable to discern the exact situation atop the Hokage building. He could only surmise from the jubilant cheers and celebratory noise that the Godame Hokage of Konoha had been officially announced. As the two figures silently observed the village below, the air hung heavy as the two former Konoha ninjas stared at the distant village where a new chapter of history was unfolding. Madara turned his gaze towards Aoki. "Who do you believe has the highest likelihood of being elected?" he inquired curiously. Aoki didn't even ponder for a moment and responded confidently, "It must be the patriarch of the Uchiha clan." He paused, a subtle chuckle escaping his lips. "There is no chance for a member of the branch family, bound by the cursed seal and fated to live as mere servants, to ascend to the position of Hokage. A bird in the cage would never be allowed to soar the skies, it would always be chained within the cage." While Aoki's tone held a hint of amusement, his eyes conveyed his utmost seriousness. Having been part of the Hyuga branch family himself, he understood the political standing of branch members within the Hyuga clan and the village as a whole. To put it bluntly, they were deemed inferior, sometimes even beneath the status of civilian ninjas. With this knowledge, Aoki was convinced that a branch member could never emerge victorious over the formidable Uchiha clan patriarch and secure leadership through the vote of confidence. Madara nodded, contemplating Aoki's words. Recollections of his time in the ninja school resurfaced, reminding him that Hyuga Curoto, even back then, had shown little promise in terms of surpassing him. He acknowledged the unlikelihood of Curoto's victory, as he was unwilling to accept the idea that someone he had easily bested in the past could rise to the position of Hokage. While Madara personally held a disdainful view of the significance of the Hokage title, he still found it preposterous to imagine someone like Hyuga Curoto assuming such a prestigious role. The notion simply defied all reason in his eyes. "Ha! Hyuga Curoto can never become Hokage," Madara thought, scoffing at the idea. As the two ninjas stood atop the cliff, certain of their thoughts, Zetsu emerged from the ground. With half of his body peering out, he delivered the news. "The Godame Hokage of Konoha has been chosen." Well, let's go. There's nothing more to see here." Madara nodded, ready to depart. Aoki concurred, his body levitating into the air. Observing the apparent lack of curiosity from Madara and Hyuga Aoki, Zetsu was momentarily taken aback and questioned, "Aren't the two of you interested to know who the Hokage is? Or is it that you already know who the Godame Hokage of Konoha is? What is there to know? Isn't it glaringly obvious?" Madara retorted. "The Uchiha clan strategically placed Shinichi within our organization and successfully retrieved him. Shinichi possessed extensive insider information of Akatsuki, which the village now has access to. This compelled us to abandon our previous hideouts and establish new ones. Furthermore, Uchiha Fugaku revealed that he, too, possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan. With the appearance of 3 Mangekyo Sharingan users in the Uchiha clan, Sarutobi Hiruzen has no choice but to make compromises. His disdain for Hyuga Kuroto's potential ascension to the Hokage position was not solely based on personal contempt. Madara took into account the Uchiha clan's contributions and their current enigmatic strength, which shaped his assessment of the overall situation. Zetsu responded to Madara's reasoning by shrugging and chuckling. The Uchiha clan shares your sentiment, but unfortunately, you all are mistaken. The victor this time is Hyuga Curoto of the Hyuga branch division, and he has been appointed as the Godame Hokage of Konohagakure by Sarutobi Hiruzen. Madara was caught off guard by the revelation. Even if Madara was wearing a mask and even if the Aoki before them was a mere puppet, Zetsu could still sense their shock and disbelief at this unexpected outcome. Without even needing to inquire further about how such a turn of events came to pass, Aoki reacted with a fierce expression, shouting in disbelief, "No, this cannot be. It's absolutely impossible. Hyuga Kuroto cannot become Hokage. Why did he become Hokage? How did he become Hokage? This is impossible." The burden of the caged bird's cursed seal lay heavily upon the branch members, relegating them to the role of servitude under the main family's control. They were denied freedom and treated as mere instruments of service. No matter the talent or strength possessed by a member of the branch division, they were deemed disposable in the eyes of the main family. Their destinies seemed unalterable, trapped within the confines of their predetermined existence. This was the belief Aoki had developed over the years. Driven by this belief, Aoki embarked on a quest for the Tenseigan, defecting from the village in a desperate bid to liberate himself. He saw no other means of escape. However, the unexpected turn of events saw Hyuga Kuroto, another member of the branch family, rise to the position of Godame Hokage through the vote of confidence. Despite his branch family status, Curoto was embraced by the masses as their leader. This reality shattered Aoki's deeply ingrained beliefs. Kuroto's achievements seemed to suggest that with enough skill and hard work, one could break free from their predetermined fate. They could open the cage and soar freely. No, he is nothing more than a loyal dog, obedient to the clan's orders. How could he be superior to me? Superior to Aoba? No, I will never accept it. I am the one who defied fate. Aoki roared with anguish, the denial of something he had believed in so strongly causing him immense pain. Inwardly, Madara seethed with frustration as his breathing became heavier. That weakling managed to defeat Shisui, Kakashi, Fugaku, and rise to the position of Hokage? How is this even possible? Something must be amiss. Though he kept his thoughts to himself, his clenched fists revealed his inner turmoil. Madara could not come to terms with the fact that Hyuga Kuroto, of all people, had become the Hokage. The clash between their deeply held beliefs and the reality before them left both Aoki and Madara grappling with an intense sense of disbelief and resentment. Observing the slightly tumultuous emotions of the two individuals even through their masks and puppets, Zetsu shrugged nonchalantly. No matter how much you complain, it won't change the fact that Hyuga Kuroto is the Godame Hokage of Konohagakure. It would be wise for both of you to accept this reality quickly so that we can adapt our plans accordingly. After a considerable amount of time, Madara and Aoki managed to regain their composure and come to terms with the situation. Madara spoke up unexpectedly, his ascension to the Hokage position may not necessarily be a bad thing for us. Aoki smirked in agreement. Indeed, Sarutobi Hiruzen has made a foolish move. He refused to acknowledge that his and his brother Aoba's unfortunate destinies were simply due to their own inadequacies. Instead, he redirected his anger and placed the blame on Sarutobi Hiruzen's alleged stupidity. In his mind, there must be another reason why Hyuga Kuroto could become Hokage, and that reason was Sarutobi Hiruzen's folly. He believed that the world was at fault, not him. Having accepted the reality of Kuroto's newfound status as Hokage, Madara and Aoki realized that it presented them with a valuable opportunity to sow chaos within Konoha. The defeat of Fugaku Uchiha had undoubtedly fueled dissatisfaction within the Uchiha clan, a clan boasting 3 wielders of the Manjikyu Sharingan. It wouldn't take much to ignite the Uchiha clan's rebellion. By appointing Curoto as Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen had already set the Uchiha clan on edge. All they had to do now was wait, and it was highly likely that an Uchiha rebellion would erupt in the near future. Once the Uchiha clan, armed with 3 pairs of Mangekyou Sharingan, rose in rebellion, it would inevitably lead to a cataclysmic battle, one that could reverberate throughout Konoha. Whether the Uchiha clan emerged victorious or the village prevailed, the impact on Konoha would be devastating. The Godame Hokage chosen that day might very well be the last Hokage of Konoha village. The realization of this potential outcome fueled Madara and Aoki's determination to exploit the situation and inflict a severe blow upon Konoha. Chapter 875 Despair and Hope. In the mansion of the Uchiha clan, Itachi stood silently in the sprawling yard, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. The atmosphere around him was tense and filled with an air of despair. Ever since his father's defeat in the Hokage election, the Uchiha clan had descended into a frenzy of emotions, resembling a volatile barrel of oil ready to ignite at any moment. Even without actively listening, Itachi could hear the faint echoes of curses and bitter remarks drifting through the streets surrounding the mansion. The voices belonged to his fellow clansmen, their anger and disgust directed towards the village resonating painfully in his ears. Itachi couldn't shake off the weight of those curses, which sounded harsh, heart-wrenching, and impossible to ignore. The situation has escalated to this point. Our future looks bleak, Itachi murmured, his face clouded with a deep sense of gloom. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor of the yard. Without turning around, Itachi could discern from the softness of the footfalls that it was his beloved younger brother, Sasuke, rushing towards him. As expected, Sasuke arrived by Itachi's side in a flurry, tears streaming down his face, and asked with a bewildered expression, "Nisan. Nisan, why did Tusan lose the election?" Itachi let out a sigh and gently flicked Sasuke's forehead. "Sasuke, you're already training to be a ninja. Ninjas shouldn't shed tears so easily, don't cry so readily in the future." Sasuke paid little attention to Itachi's remark and persisted with his questioning, his voice filled with confusion, "But Tusan awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, and our clan has served the village faithfully for decades. We were also the founders of Konohagakure. Shouldn't they have voted for him?" Though young, Sasuke had picked up on the constant stream of curses and resentful remarks from their clansmen towards the other villagers of Konoha. It had made him realize that the Uchiha clan had been deceived and that a significant conspiracy was at play during the vote of confidence. Itachi spoke softly, trying to convey the complexity of the situation. "It's a very complex matter, Sasuke. You'll understand when you grow older." Sasuke pouted, unconvinced. "It's not complicated at all. The Hokage should be the strongest ninja in the village, right? That way, they can protect the village." Itachi was momentarily taken aback by Sasuke's response. After a brief pause, a warm smile graced his lips as he ruffled Sasuke's hair affectionately. His gaze drifted into the distance, lost in his own thoughts as he murmured, "Yes, Sasuke, the Hokage should indeed be the most powerful ninja in the village. It's not complicated at all." Somewhere in the Uchiha district, inside an izakaya, Shinichi found solace in passing his time there instead of the usual training grounds. "Ha! I am really bored." The recent prohibition imposed by Curoto on the use of Sharingan for the next few days had disrupted his routine. "Well, can't do anything about it," he thought, shaking his head as he raised his cup and took a sip of sake and sighed in relief. This is some good stuff." However, his solace and peace were interrupted by the cursing of his clansmen. "I want to eliminate those traitors who betrayed our Uchiha clan." One Uchiha voiced his frustration, the bitterness evident in his words. "They are just pawns of the village. It is the village itself that orchestrated the betrayal against us Uchiha," another Uchiha said in a voice filled with resentment. "You're right. With an incapable and cunning bastard like Sarutobi Hiruzen in power, our Uchiha ninjas won't even have a chance at becoming Hokage," added another. The disdain and resentment these Uchihas held for the village was palpable and obvious. Perhaps due to the effects of sake, the Uchiha clansmen within the izakaya were more candid and sharp with their curses than what could be heard on the streets. The curses grew louder and carried their anger, frustration, and resentment. "Children," thought Shinichi, shaking his head, and he continued to enjoy his sake. He remained unfazed by the surrounding abuse and curses that filled his ears. Suddenly, Uchiha Shin, visibly intoxicated, stumbled his way over to Shinichi, holding his cup. He slurred, "Shinichi-san, you're here drinking too?" Shinichi glanced at the drunken Shin, frowned, and responded, "Aren't you supposed to be on patrol right now? Why are you here drinking?" "Patrol?" Shin hiccuped, his words slurred. "The assholes treats us Uchihas like monkeys and expects us to serve them? Well, they can kill my ass." Shinichi shook his head, dismissing Shin's drunken ramblings, and continued to drink his sake in peace. Undeterred, Shin continued, "I know you're unhappy too. Don't worry, the Patriarch won't let those bastards get away with it." Shinichi replied casually, "He has already lost the election. What more can the Patriarch do?" "The Patriarch, you, and Shursui. We Uchiha possess 3 pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan. So what if we lost the vote of confidence? With the 3 of you, we can seize control of the village directly." Shin exclaimed, downing more alcohol with each word. Shinichi turned his head to look at the intoxicated Shin and asked, "Isn't it better to stay alive?" Shin, not hearing clearly, swayed unsteadily and asked, "Huh? What did you just say?" "It's nothing," Shinichi replied, regaining his composure, no longer paying attention to the inebriated Shin. "Coup d'etat?" In Shinichi's eyes, the current Hokage, Hyuga Curoto, is the most formidable shinobi alive. Not only is he the strongest, but he is also the leader of Amitsukami, an organization so formidable that even the 5 great shinobi villages have to rely on them to fight Akatsuki. The idea of rebelling seemed like a certain suicide to Shinichi. In fact, he believed that choosing suicide would be an easier path, at least in death, he would have control over his fate. Actually, the boss doesn't need to take action personally. With just Samsara alone, we Uchiha are done for. Not to mention Fujin, Tsukihei, Dojin, and Suijin, and on top of that, all the Kanagaku ninjas. You fools are rushing towards your own demise. Don't drag me into it." Shinichi expressed his disdain toward the idea. Hyuga District. In stark contrast to the anger and bitterness within the Uchiha clan, joy permeated the atmosphere. Laughter echoed through the streets, and Niji, too, wore a face adorned with pride and happiness ever since the Sandaime announced Curoto as the Godame Hokage. "Niji!" Hisashi sternly called out to his son, noticing his momentary distraction. "Otu-sama!" Niji quickly snapped back to attention, straightening his posture and sitting upright on his knees. Observing Niji's return to his meticulous sitting position, Hisashi nodded with satisfaction before speaking earnestly, "From this day forward, you are not just a member of the branch family of the Hyuga clan. You are also the disciple of the Hokage. Your every word and action represent Hokage-sama, so you must exercise strict self-restraint. You mustn't bring unnecessary trouble upon Hokage-sama by following in the footsteps of others." Niji lowered his head and replied, "Yes." Seeing Niji attentively listening, a smile appeared on Hisashi's serious face. He took great pride in his decision to have Niji become Kuroto's disciple, believing it to be the most correct choice he had made in his life. He is well aware of the significance of being the Hokage's disciple. It is not just an honor but also an opportunity to change one's fate, a chance to fight against the confines of being a caged bird. When his son, with exceptional talent, was branded with the mark of the caged bird, Hisashi was consumed by despair. He even harbored dark thoughts, contemplating the unthinkable act of harming Hinata. At that moment, he recognized that Niji's fate had been sealed, destined to be controlled by members of the main family who were far less gifted and weaker than him. However, with Curoto assuming the position of Godame Hokage, the fate of many people underwent a transformation. And the one who benefited the most was undoubtedly Niji, Kuroto's sole disciple. In accordance with the village's traditions, the Hokage's disciples are the natural successors to the position of Hokage. In other words, Niji, who was previously distant from the possibility of becoming Hokage, now possessed the invaluable qualification of being a future Hokage candidate by virtue of being Kuroto's disciple. Gazing at his son, who had matured and grown increasingly handsome, Hisashi looked ahead with anticipation, whispering, "Niji, I think, you may no longer be a bird confined to a cage. You may have a chance to spread your wings and soar high." Chapter 876 Amitsukami Analysis Report. Putting the Hokage hat on the desk, Curoto approached the window. Prior to today's vote of confidence, the previous Hokage, Sandaime Hokage, had already relocated his personal belongings. From this moment forward, Curoto was the rightful owner of the Hokage office. Although Curoto had visited this office numerous times before, it was his first appearance as the official owner. Therefore, everything in the room felt simultaneously familiar and unfamiliar to him. 2. 8, 16, 24. After a brief moment of observation, Curoto discovered the presence of 24 diligent Umbu operatives stationed near the Hokage's office. This indicated that 6 Umbu squads were responsible for covertly securing his office. After cross-referencing the defense map of the Hokage building in his possession, Curoto confirmed the accuracy of his perception. Indeed, 6 Umbu squads were discreetly safeguarding the Hokage office. "TCH, it's quite troublesome," Curoto muttered with a hint of frustration, slowly sinking back into his chair. The formidable defense setup undoubtedly posed significant challenges for him in terms of sneaking out and disappearing unnoticed in the future. This was one of the reasons why he had been reluctant to assume the position of Hokage. Nevertheless, he had to accept the reality and find a way to circumvent this issue. "Knock! Knock!" Abruptly, a gentle knock resounded at the door. Curoto rubbed his forehead and nodded, "Come in." Kakashi entered, holding a confidential document, and respectfully bowed to Curoto, "Hokage-sama." Curoto waved his hand helplessly and said, "Must we still maintain such formalities when it's just the two of us?" Kakashi and Curoto were not only shinobi from the same generation but also long-standing colleagues. It would feel strange for Kakashi, of all people, to address him as Hokage-sama. Observing that Hyuga Curoto did not let his new title inflate his ego, Kakashi nodded with a smile and replied, "Very well then, I'll continue addressing you the way we always have, Curoto." Curoto nodded appreciatively and asked, "So, what brings you here? Has something occurred?" Kakashi shook his head. "Nothing noteworthy has transpired." He paused briefly and explained, "However, now that you are Hokage, it is essential for you to be acquainted with certain top-level village secrets. Although you may already be aware of several, it is customary to go through the formalities." Curoto murmured, "I see, now intrigued to know the nature of these secrets Kakashi was about to divulge." Kakashi nodded. "Here are the documents," he said, placing the classified papers on Curoto's desk. Curoto picked up the document and casually inquired, "What is this?" Immediately, Kakashi's smile vanished, and he adopted a solemn expression as he responded, "Curoto, the document in your hands is perhaps the most highly valued document at this moment." "I wonder what it entails," murmured Curoto as he began reading the document. The last time Kakashi mentioned something as top secret, it was related to Uchiha Izumi, the double agent. Although Kakashi had not disclosed the agent's identity, Curoto was well aware of who it was. Now, with Kakashi again using the term top secret, Curoto's curiosity was piqued. As he delved into the document's contents, Curoto was taken aback. The front page displayed the words, "Amitsukami Organization Analysis Report." Observing Curoto's silence, Kakashi walked up behind him and elaborated, "This report represents 8 years of exhaustive analysis of the Amitsukami organization. It encompasses every facet we know about Amitsukami, its members, their jutsu, combat styles, specialties, preferred chakra, and even the Kekkei Jinkai they possess. Essentially, it encompasses everything we have witnessed or learned about them thus far." Curoto nodded lightly, feeling the strangeness of having an entire document dedicated to his own organization, and how it was deemed the highest-level secret by Konoha. Kakashi paused for a moment, then added, "Now that you have assumed the role of Hokage, your inevitable encounters with Amitsukami necessitate a complete understanding of their organization. Therefore, I urge you to thoroughly read this report." Intrigued by Kakashi's serious demeanor, Curoto began reading the analysis from a first-person perspective. It focused on Yama. Noting that Curoto was engrossed in reading the analysis report on Yama, Kakashi spoke. Yama is the leader of Amitsukami and likely the most formidable entity in the shinobi world, surpassing even Nagato in strength. There is a strong possibility that he is an ancient being who has resided in the shinobi world through unknown means, taking an interest in current events. While no evidence of his presence or involvement has been found, approximately 8 years ago, during our time in the same Umbu squad, Yama suddenly became active, Kakashi continued. We investigated this brief period of Yama's activity and discovered that Yama single-handedly completed up to 70% of missions in the black market at an alarming speed. His efficiency and accuracy were astonishingly high. The missions he undertook mainly involved confrontations, extensive tracking, and travel. Even if you and I were to tackle these missions, it would undoubtedly take us significantly longer compared to Yama's rapid completion. This discrepancy in speed suggests that he possesses the extraordinary ability to fly at tremendous speeds and potentially knows a space-time jutsu akin to the flying Raijin technique. Curoto smiled as he questioned upon hearing Kakashi's explanation, such antiquated matters have also been thoroughly investigated? Kakashi nodded solemnly. Yama possesses enough power to exert influence over the entire shinobi world. Even if he isn't an enemy, it is crucial for us to be attentive to every aspect concerning him. Currently, we haven't determined the exact reason behind someone of his position and authority undertaking numerous missions. Yamanaka Inoichi-san suggested that he might be refining a jutsu or tactic, which is a plausible and valid argument. I, too, believe that this rationale is entirely possible. Curoto nodded and inquired, is this the consensus among everyone? Kakashi nodded in response. Sandame-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Elder Koharu, and I all share Inoichi-san's analysis. He chuckled and added, however, Tsunade-sama firmly insists that Yama completed these missions out of an obsession with money. Of course, her argument lacks credibility. How could that be possible? Cough cough. Curoto coughed, adopting a serious expression. Sometimes, Tsunade-sama presents unreasonable arguments. It's inconceivable for someone like Yama to be obsessed with money. Kakashi nodded in agreement, also finding it implausible for someone as formidable as Yama to traverse the shinobi world solely for financial gain. There must be another motive. Observing Kakashi aligning with his thoughts, Curoto internally breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but think, that old woman truly possesses keen perception. Shifting his focus back to the analysis report, Curoto turned the page and discovered that it only contained records of information related to Yama's combat capabilities. Both records provided detailed and straightforward descriptions of Yama's battles with Nagato, along with numerous speculations about the abilities employed by both combatants. Is that all? He couldn't help but ask Kakashi. This is too little information. Moreover, half of it is inaccurate and mere conjecture. Chapter 877 Amitsukami Analysis Report, Part 2. As Curoto turned the page, the next name that appeared before his eyes was that of Suijin from the Amitsukami organization. Having witnessed firsthand the clashes between Sandame Hokage and the shinobi of Kirigakure, Curoto found the description of Suijin's battle style, tactics, and jutsu to be far more intricate. Kakashi spoke. Undoubtedly, you should already be familiar with him, considering your unfortunate encounter with him nearly 8 years ago. Curoto nodded. Yes, he and Homasubi suddenly materialized before me and Shursui, subjecting us to a chilling freeze. Of course, this fabricated story served as a cover for Curoto and Shursui's actual deeds. Kakashi concurred. Indeed. It's highly likely that Suijin is a skilled shinobi hailing from the extinct Yuki clan of Kirigakure. His mastery over ice-release Kekkei Jinkai and water-release jutsu is extraordinary, enabling him to engage Sandame-sama on equal footing. Additionally, he possesses an enigmatic technique that transforms him into a colossal dragon-like creature, capable of summoning an oceanic phenomenon in the sky. Only through the combined efforts of Yonde Mizukage in his perfected Jinchuriki mode and elite shinobi from Kirigakure did they manage to compel his retreat. Furthermore, there exists a possibility that he engaged several members of the Akatsuki organization during Orochimaru's tenure. Not only did he confront them head-on, but he also emerged from the encounter alive, underscoring his formidable prowess and extensive combat experience. Curoto nodded, perusing the description of Suijin. Even without Kakashi's information, Curoto possessed intimate knowledge of the enigmatic shinobi named Suijin. His gaze fixated on the term unidentified and he inquired with a faint smile, "So, we still have no inkling about his true identity?" Kakashi sighed, regrettably, "No. Even the denizens of Kirigakure remain clueless as to Suijin's origins. Over the past 2 decades, during the era of the Village of the Bloody Mist, numerous shinobi defected from the village, making it arduous to distinguish friend from foe. Moreover, in that era, those possessing Kekkei Genkai were relentlessly persecuted by Kirigakure authorities following the coup d'état. As a result, many concealed their true identities and their affiliations with Kekkei Genkai-bearing clans. Consequently, ascertaining Suijin's potential identity proves to be an exceedingly challenging endeavor." Curoto acknowledged, absorbing the information. About the situation in Kirigakure, nobody possessed a deeper understanding than Curoto himself. During the days when Yagura was clandestinely manipulated by Obito, uprisings erupted in Kirigakure almost every month. Even now, the village struggled to recover from the scars of civil wars, making it unsurprising that the true identity of Suijin remained elusive. With this knowledge in mind, Curoto shifted his focus to the section concerning Homusubi within the file. In comparison to the previous information on Suijin, the details regarding Homusubi were notably more extensive. It was evident that the village placed considerably greater importance on Homusubi than on Suijin. The circumstances surrounding Homusubi are rather exceptional. There are 2 individuals bearing the name Homusubi within the Amitsukami organization, 1 male and 1 female. The male Homusubi possesses a crimson Susanoo and is known to wield special spiritual weapons called Tatsuka no Tsurugi and Yata no Kagami. These spiritual artifacts harbor unimaginable power, with Tatsuka no Tsurugi capable of sealing anyone within an eternal drunken dream and Yata no Kagami possessing the ability to reflect all enemy jutsu. Diverging from the male Homusubi, the female Homusubi manifests a golden Susanoo of grander proportions, akin to that of Shirsui's. Moreover, her Susanoo is enveloped in a golden flame, searing with intense heat, capable of incinerating chakra itself. Only tailed beast chakra-infused water release or Senjutsu chakra-infused water release can withstand the potency of these golden flames. What's truly remarkable is that she can wield these golden flames even outside the realm of her Susanoo. In addition to Susanoo, both individuals possess their own unique Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, much like Uchiha Shinichi. Though we are unaware of the full extent of their abilities, we do know that one of the male Homusubi's capabilities is a Jinjutsu that entraps victims within a world under his complete control. Time flows at his whim within this Jinjutsu, which he employs to torment his adversaries. This ability is exceptionally treacherous, as I personally experienced its horrors during the War of the Best, explained Kakashi, his expression clouded with bitterness. The hours of torture he endured still lingered vividly in his memory. Curoto nodded as he directed his attention towards the comprehensive description of both Homusubi individuals. The description contains similarities between the Susanoo of male Homusubi and that of Fugaku, as depicted in the 2 pictures. The resemblances extended beyond color and encompassed their shape. However, the possession of Tatsuka no Tsurugi and Yata no Kagami was noted as a distinguishing factor. Kakashi further shared his perplexity, stating, "I find this rather peculiar as well. The Susanoo of male Homusubi and Uchiha Fugaku bear striking similarities. According to Shirsui's account, the Susanoo of 2 individuals should not be reminiscent of each other due to their distinct chakra signatures." Curious, Curoto glanced at Kakashi and queried, "What are your thoughts? Why are they so alike?" Kakashi shook his head and replied, "We possess limited knowledge concerning the Uchiha clan and their Susanoo, making it difficult to draw any conclusive explanations for their similarities." In truth, a lingering doubt resided within Kakashi's heart. Unspoken to anyone, there existed a possibility that the male Homusubi had a close blood relation to Uchiha Fugaku, which could account for their comparable chakra signatures. The male Homosubi might be Fugaku's unknown sibling or even Fugaku's eldest son, Itachi. However, Kakashi had meticulously examined all available records, which showed no evidence of Fugaku having a sibling. Furthermore, at the time the male Homosubi first appeared, Itachi was merely 8 or 9 years old, making him an implausible candidate. Therefore, Kakashi remained uncertain and chose not to share this possibility with others. He had no desire to unjustly implicate the young Uchiha heir. Nodding in understanding, Curoto posed another question: are there any speculations regarding their potential identities? Kakashi mumbled to himself, it could be anyone. After a pause, he continued, one possibility is that the female Homosubi is Uchiha Naori, who operated during the era when Sandaime and the other elders were young shinobi. According to available information, she met an untimely demise under mysterious circumstances. He added, as for the male Homosubi, it could be either Uchiha Ryota or his brother Uchiha Hideki, both of whom were abducted by Amitsukami a few years ago. However, these are merely conjectures, and there is also a chance that these assumptions are incorrect. It is plausible that both the male and female Homosubi are individuals presumed dead during the First, Second, or Third Great Shinobi War. The Uchiha, it seems, have a way of resurfacing after all. As Kakashi concluded, a hint of melancholy clouded his demeanor. Nodding thoughtfully, Curoto acknowledged, those are reasonable guesses, I suppose. The possibility that the Uchihas of Amitsukami were hidden within the Uchiha clan was not entertained by the village, which was a wise and logical approach. The current Uchiha clan consists of 3 Mangekyo Sharingan users, none of whom are Homosubi. This fact is widely acknowledged. If the 2 Uchihas from Amitsukami were indeed concealed within the Uchiha clan, the clan would have a total of 5 Mangekyo Sharingan users. With such formidable power, it is likely that the Uchiha clan would have revolted long ago. However, the absence of any such rebellion suggests that Homosubi and the other Uchiha are not harbored within the Uchiha clan. With this thought in mind, Curoto turned the page and came across the section dedicated to Fujin. Due to Fujin's involvement in the battle against numerous members of the Akatsuki during their attempted Konoha collapse plan, and the extensive witnesses from Konoha, his section contained substantial information. It was repeatedly emphasized that Fujin possessed a mastery over several Kekkei Genkai. Notably, Magnet Release, Shikatsumiyaku, and Typhoon Release were mentioned. Interestingly, the information regarding Scorch Release and Byakugan, which Curoto had desired to remain undisclosed, was absent. Although he couldn't fathom why Kurenai omitted it, he felt relieved by its absence. Observing Kuroto's growing interest in Fujin, Kakashi inquired, would you like to hear my personal assessment of Fujin? Curoto nodded in agreement and replied, please, go ahead. Kakashi shared his perspective, stating, Fujin is not just strong, but incredibly powerful. Without a doubt, he is the second strongest member within the Amitsukami organization. Kakashi's assessment was accurate. The strength of the Fujin clone indeed ranked second within Amitsukami. However, this ranking was subject to change with Karin acquiring the Rinnegan. Nonetheless, at present, it remained a fact. After all, the devastating power of the all-killing Ash Bones was nothing to be taken lightly. Even though the Fujin clone could only utilize this power partially at the risk of self-destruction, it undeniably stood as one of the most perilous abilities in the shinobi world. Nodding in understanding, Curoto perused the content regarding Fujin. Subsequently, he shifted his attention to the section about Dojin. Although this segment lacked substantial information, it contained a sentence that revealed everything one needed to know about Dojin. Dojin is Deidara of a Wagakure. Kakashi clarified, despite his denial, this fact remains undoubtedly true. All relevant information about Deidara is stored in the corresponding archives. Feel free to explore it at your convenience. Curoto nodded and closed the analysis report, expressing his satisfaction. This report is impeccable. As for the true reason behind his satisfaction? Perhaps that's something only Curoto understood. Chapter 878 The New Hokage Guard Platoon. After closing the Amitsukami analysis report, Kakashi turned to Curoto and spoke, we have instructed Deidara to make contact with the Amitsukami. If there is any communication with them, you will be notified." "Got it," nodded Curoto. Kakashi continued, "One more thing to keep in mind, now that you are Hokage, the members of Amitsukami may directly approach you to discuss certain matters. Therefore, you must be prepared in case you suddenly encounter them." Hearing Kakashi's words, Curoto was momentarily intrigued and thought to himself, "Yes, now that I consider it, being the leader of Amitsukami and Hokage at the same time is unexpectedly advantageous. I can bypass involving too many people in my decisions and interactions, omitting trivial details." While Curoto pondered the advantages of his dual identities, Kakashi proceeded, "There is one more matter we hope you can figure out." "Figure what out?" asked Curoto, not comprehending Kakashi's implication. "The main family of your clan appears to be engaged in undisclosed transactions with unknown external forces. Moreover, Amitsukami is also involved in this," explained Kakashi, with an air of concern left unsaid. He knew Curoto would grasp his meaning. Curoto nodded, "I will do my best to address this." Having personally fought against Otsutsuki Tonari's puppet to rescue Hisashi, Curoto was well acquainted with the intricacies of the situation. However, this matter involved the Otsutsuki clan and the secrets of the Tenseigan. Personally, Curoto did not want Konoha to become entangled in this affair either. Hence, Curoto decided to assist the main family in concealing the matter. As for the threat posed by Tonari to the shinobi world, Curoto would have to deal with him as well. However, to confront Tonari, he needed to lure him out, and for that, suitable bait was required. Surveying the entire shinobi world, there were few entities or individuals suitable to act as bait. The giant Tenseigan of the Hyuga clan was one such bait, but the predicament lay in its current control by Aoki. If Curoto wished to use the giant Tenseigan as a lure for Tonari, he first had to acquire that treasure. And in order to obtain the Hyuga clan's giant Tenseigan, Curoto had to first entice Aoki out, or else all efforts would be futile. "The stage is being prepared. I hope the actors won't delay in assuming their roles," Curoto ruminated to himself. Aside from being engrossed in the creation of the Rinnegan, one of the primary reasons why Curoto allowed the situation in the village to escalate to this extent was to delay his intervention and let those who sought chaos take the bait. They needed an opening to strike, and Curoto was deliberately providing them with an opportunity while he pursued his own objective. The dissatisfaction of the Uchiha clan presented the perfect chance for these individuals, and Curoto believed they would not remain idle this time. As Curoto contemplated these matters, Kakashi suddenly produced another set of papers and handed them to him, saying, "This is a comprehensive list of all the ANBU operatives, including detailed descriptions of their abilities. Take a look and select a suitable shinobi for your Hokage guard platoon." "Hokage guards," muttered Curoto with a furrowed brow, shaking his head in disagreement. "No, that's unnecessary. I don't want guards around me." The presence of the ANBU operatives already posed a headache for Curoto within the Hokage office. He did not desire another team constantly trailing him for the sake of his security. Curoto shrugged. "Curoto, you should be well aware of the current situation. If the Uchihas, if someone intends to act, I will be their primary target. As the Hokage, my safety is not merely a personal matter, it holds great importance for the village. Therefore, I cannot be stubborn in this regard, and I must promptly establish a Hokage guard platoon." The formation of a Hokage guard platoon was a customary practice in the ninja world. Every Kage in a shinobi village had their personal team of guards. Furthermore, the situation in Konoha was undeniably complex. After contemplating for a while, Curoto finally nodded, "All right, fine." With Kuroto's agreement, Kakashi was satisfied and departed from the Hokage office. Once Kakashi had left, Curoto began perusing the pages, contemplating whom to select for the task. Suddenly, his eyes lit up with an idea. "Knock! Knock! Come in," Curoto called out, as four familiar faces appeared in his office and stood before him. These four individuals were none other than Kurenai, Hyuga, Hayate, and Anko. Observing their presence, Curoto spoke, "I have gathered the four of you here to discuss something." I am considering transferring all of you to the new Hokage guard platoon. Do any of you have objections? Anko blinked in surprise. Huh? Really, Curoto-kun? Being a member of the Hokage guard platoon meant a promotion. Not only was it an immense honor to be the Hokage's guard, but it also presented an opportunity to access new information and experiences that were not available even to ANBU members. Before Curoto could respond to Anko's question, Kurenai whispered softly, "Anko, mind your manners. He is the Hokage now." Anko nodded in response and bowed to Curoto, saying, "Please forgive me, Hokage-sama." Unlike Kakashi, who had already ascended to the highest position and was about to become the chief advisor, Anko was still an ordinary special jonin. Therefore, with Kurenai's reminder, she swiftly realized that the Curoto standing before her was no longer the student or fellow squad member from their childhood. He was now the Godame Hokage, the leader of Konoha. Curoto smiled and waved his hand, reassuring them, "It's all right." He added after a brief pause, "I value your opinions, so please feel free to express yourselves. If any of you genuinely wish to become part of the platoon, let me know. And if any of you are not interested, please also inform me." Anko was the first to nod, saying, "Heh, if it means being your guard, count me in." "No problem." Kurenai, Hyuga, and Hayate also nodded, following Anko's lead. "We have no objections either," they concurred. Curoto nodded in satisfaction and stated, "From this moment onward, the four of you are members of the Hokage guard platoon. You will be directly responsible for my safety and must obey all my orders." "I assume that all four of you understand this?" "Yes," the four of them replied in unison. Curoto smiled with a content expression, saying, "Very good." After contemplating for a moment, he turned to Kurenai. "Kurenai, you shall be the captain of the Hokage guard platoon." Among the four, Kurenai possessed the greatest strength and experience, making her the most suitable candidate for the role of captain in the Hokage guard platoon. Kurenai nodded, responding, "As you command." With that, the new Hokage guard platoon, consisting of Yuhi Kurenai, Mitarashi Anko, Gekko Hayate, and Yuzuki Hyuga, was officially established, with Kurenai assuming the position of captain. Chapter 879 Kabuto's Progress. A figure traversed through a cavern veiled in a dense mist. With each step forward, the mist gradually dissipated, thinning out and revealing a radiant light at the cave's far end. Unperturbed by the sight, the figure continued their unhurried approach towards the cave's exit. Exiting the cave didn't take long, and as the figure emerged into the open, the brilliant sunlight showered upon them. Having spent the past few days in the darkness of the cave, the sudden exposure to such intense brightness instinctively compelled the figure to shield their eyes with their hands. The excess light caused discomfort, overwhelming their senses. After a while, the figure's pupils adjusted to the light, and they cautiously withdrew their hands, only to discover that their vision remained blurry. "It must be due to the lingering mist," the figure mumbled to themselves, intending to wipe away the moisture from their glasses. However, at that moment, they hesitated. Upon removing their glasses, the figure realized something astonishing. Their vision was unexpectedly clear, even clearer than ever before. Overwhelmed by the clarity of the world seen directly through their unaided eyes, the figure couldn't help but express their surprise and delight. Could this mean that Senjutsu has the potential to cure myopia? They pondered aloud, their mind filled with wonder. This figure was none other than Yakushi Kabuto, who had ventured into the Ryuchi cave days ago, determined to attain the Senjutsu mode even at the cost of his life. Undoubtedly, Kabuto possessed an extraordinary talent for Senjutsu, mastering it within an impressively short span of time. Even the venerable White Snake Sage herself marveled at Kabuto's aptitude for Senjutsu. Naruto, being a reincarnation of Asura and inheriting the Sage of Six Paths' physical prowess, stood apart. On the other hand, Kabuto, originally an ordinary shinobi, managed to swiftly grasp the intricacies of the Senjutsu mode. This exceptional accomplishment astounded even the White Snake Sage, who briefly entertained the notion that the Senjutsu mode of the Ryuchi cave was tailor-made for Kabuto. Within a few days of dedicated practice, Kabuto not only honed the skill of absorbing natural energy but also learned to instantly enter the senjutsu mode without the need for prolonged stillness to gather the surrounding natural energy. Presently, Kabuto's mastery of senjutsu surpassed that of Jiraiya and Naruto, placing him on par with the esteemed first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. It is crucial to note that Kabuto's extraordinary achievement was not a mere stroke of luck. Even within the canon storyline, following Orochimaru's demise, Kabuto inherited his mentor's legacy while embarking on a quest to unravel the meaning of life. In his pursuit, Kabuto went to great lengths, incorporating the cells of others into his own body, which tainted his chakra and resulted in a malignant chakra composition. Indeed, to master senjutsu, it takes more than purity of heart and unwavering determination. It requires a body that harmonizes with nature. Kabuto's ill-fated decision to integrate the cells of Orochimaru and his test subjects tainted his body, creating a disharmony that contradicted the necessary conditions for senjutsu mastery. Nevertheless, Kabuto defied the odds and achieved mastery in senjutsu, showcasing his exceptional talent in this art. Unlike his canon counterpart, Kabuto did not engage in such misguided actions in this particular world, allowing his achievements here to surpass those of his canon self. Kabuto clenched his fists, reveling in the newfound strength coursing through his body. It was an unprecedented level of power he had never experienced before, elevating him to heights previously unimaginable. Closing his eyes and attuning himself to his surroundings, Kabuto could sense the omnipresence of natural energy permeating the heavens and earth. Despite acknowledging that its density paled in comparison to the abundance found within the Ryuchi cave, Kabuto couldn't help but be amazed by the sheer ubiquity of natural energy. Now that the senjutsu mode has been mastered, Kabuto murmured to himself, stowing his glasses away in his shinobi bag. The utmost importance lies in finding Orochimaru-sama, he declared, his determination resolute and focused. Otogekure, the land of sound. After Kabuto returned to Otogekure, his first course of action was to summon the Sound Four, Orochimaru-sama's most loyal subordinates. In addition to the main laboratory in Otogekure, there were 4 major laboratories scattered across the land of sound, with each of the Sound Four assigned to search for one of them. It was time to hear the results of their search. Kimimaro was the first to report, stating, "The laboratory I searched contained research on various fuinjutsu and kinjutsu." Tenzo spoke up next, saying, "The one in the south was focused on Orochimaru-sama's Chimera Jutsu and the Chimera Buds." Haku produced a few scrolls and informed them the laboratory in the west had research related to cloning technology. Hyuga then spoke, his voice tinged with hesitation, "The one in the east had research pertaining to different types of cursed seals." Sensing Hyuga's conflicted state of mind, Kabuto questioned him, "Did you find something significant in the laboratory?" After carefully considering his words, Hyuga responded, "Orochimaru-sama may no longer be present in the shinobi world." Kabuto shook his head, asserting, "No, I can confirm that Orochimaru-sama is not dead." Hyuga interjected, clarifying his previous statement, "I didn't mean to imply that Orochimaru-sama is deceased. What I meant is that his physical body may have perished, but he is still alive, in a suspended state of sorts." The others furrowed their brows, seeking further clarification. Hyuga continued to explain, "Through the use of cursed seals, Orochimaru-sama not only sealed his chakra within us, but also a portion of his soul. By merging these fragments of his soul, Orochimaru-sama's essence can be restored." Haku questioned, "But how can we merge these souls?" Hyuga shrugged, stating, "It's not overly complicated. Once the seal is released, the corresponding fragment of his soul can be extracted. However, we will need a strong body capable of accommodating Orochimaru-sama's soul." Kimimaro inquired, "How strong does the body need to be?" Hyuga shook his head, unable to provide a definitive answer. "I cannot say for certain, but the stronger the body, the better." Without hesitation, Kimimaro spoke up, offering his own body. "In that case, use my body. I am the strongest among us, and my body should be perfectly suited for this purpose." However, as soon as Kimimaro finished speaking, he coughed up blood and experienced an intense burning pain in his chest. Realizing that Kimimara's condition had worsened, Kabuto intervened. "Let's use my body instead. It should be safer." The others nodded in agreement, accepting Kabuto's suggestion. With the decision made, Kabuto approached Tenzo and Haku, pressing his hands against their necks. He proceeded to unseal the cursed seals implanted in their bodies, absorbing Orochimaru's chakra and a fragment of his soul that had been sealed within them. Chapter 880 The Visitor at Midnight. Hyuga Curoto's house. After closing the document in his hand, Curoto massaged his forehead in frustration. It had only been a few days since he assumed the position of Godame Hokage, yet he was already experiencing a tinge of melancholy. Despite delegating the daily administrative duties to the advisory elders, there were certain government documents that only he, as the Godame Hokage, could sign. This required him to spend a considerable amount of time signing various official papers every day. Beyond the realm of work, his personal life had also been significantly affected. In the past, he could roam the streets freely, indulging in any activities he desired, without drawing much attention. However, now, whenever he stepped foot outside, people along the way would bow and greet him respectfully, which greatly annoyed him. Previously, if he wanted to slip out of the village unnoticed, he could easily leave behind a shadow clone. But as the Hokage, his every word, action, and decision garnered intense scrutiny. There were numerous responsibilities he had to attend to, making it risky to rely solely on a shadow clone. After all, a clone might not be equipped to handle certain matters, and if its true nature was exposed, it would cause chaos. Sigh. What should I do? Curoto muttered, turning his gaze towards the window. Even though darkness had fallen, his Hokage platoon faithfully guarded his residence from the shadows, further adding to his discomfort. Sometimes, having overly diligent subordinates can also be troublesome. In truth, the 4 members of his platoon were still the best option. When Curoto had shared his choice of the Hokage platoon with Elder Hiruzen and Elder Koharu, they had expressed concerns about the perilous state of the world and suggested selecting a more capable platoon. However, Curoto had remained steadfast in his decision, disregarding their advice. It wasn't that he couldn't have chosen others, it was simply too much of a hassle. Ideally, Curoto would have preferred to have Shinichi, Shisui, Itachi, and Naomi, but unfortunately, that option had been rejected. Consequently, he settled for Kurenai, Hayate, Hyuga, and Anko. Nonetheless, the Hokage platoon was merely a formality and carried out missions of limited significance. They did not offer substantial protection for the Hokage. Curoto pondered on historical events that had proven the uselessness of the Hokage platoon time and time again. Where was the Hokage platoon when the Shodame Hokage fought against Uchiha Madara? What use did they serve when the Nidame Hokage sacrificed his life to stop the Kinkaku and Ginkaku brothers? Where were they when the Yondame Hokage sealed the Kyuubi inside his son, Naruto? Even during the Sandame Hokage's battle with Orochimaru, the Hokage platoon remained ineffective and played the role of commentators rather than protectors. History had repeatedly demonstrated that the Hokage platoon could not genuinely protect the Hokage. It was evident that the Hokage, being the strongest shinobi in the village, would encounter threats that the platoon couldn't handle. They would merely perish in vain. Thus, instead of selecting stronger shinobi, it was better to choose individuals who were reliable and easily controlled. In this regard, Kurenai, Hayate, Hyuga, and Anko were the ideal choices since they possessed trustworthiness and were easily manageable. Regardless, I must find a solution to this predicament, Curoto muttered, contemplating the challenges brought about by his Hokage status. At the same time, an unidentified figure clandestinely breached Konoha's outer wall. "Who goes there?" a vigilant Konoha shinobi questioned, observing the figure cloaked in darkness. However, before the shinobi could react or raise the alarm, he was overcome by a sudden bout of dizziness and swiftly lost consciousness. Having dealt with the Konoha shinobi, the cloaked figure surveyed the illuminated village below and remarked to himself, "The security seems quite stringent. Well, it hardly matters." With a sly grin, he vanished in an instant. Due to the heightened tensions surrounding the Godame Hokage election, security measures around the village had been doubled, resulting in an increased number of patrolling shinobi. Nevertheless, the cloaked figure remained unaffected by the heightened security, slipping through undetected and arriving at the village center within a few minutes. Taking cover within the canopy of a tree, the cloaked figure cast his gaze upon Curoto's house across the street and chuckled softly. "Heh, it's been a while since I last came here. Things have certainly changed," he mused. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared once more, reappearing at the gate of Curoto's residence. No longer concealing his presence, he boldly entered the courtyard of Curoto's house. Why-ish! Why-ish! Predictably, he was intercepted, with the 4 members of the Hokage platoon surrounding him from all sides, their weapons poised menacingly. One of them demanded, "Identify yourself." The cloaked figure raised both hands in a gesture of non-aggression and replied, "I mean no harm." Kurenai spoke firmly, "Lower your hood." The cloaked figure complied, revealing his face. Yakushi Kabuto? The former ANBU members recognized him as the former teacher at Konoha Ninja Academy who had mysteriously vanished several months ago. They were taken aback by his sudden appearance in Konoha and questioned him skeptically, "What are you doing here?" Facing the platoon's doubts, Kabuto responded calmly, "I merely seek an audience with Godame Hokage-sama." Anko scoffed at the prospect of allowing a traitor to meet the Hokage and refused, "Since when can a traitor like you meet Hawk?" But before she could finish her words, Kuroto's voice that came from inside the mansion cut her off, "Allow him in." The 4 members of the Hokage platoon exchanged glances and reluctantly stepped back. Kurenai spoke, "All right, go." Although this unconventional method of meeting the Hokage was highly irregular, especially considering Kabuto's status as a rogue shinobi, Kuroto's personal directive left them with no alternative but to grant him entry. Without hesitation, Kabuto entered Kuroto's house from the main gate. Imagine a traitor of the village entering the house of the Hokage from the main gate. "Isn't that something new?" spoke Kabuto as he stepped into the house. "So, you have mastered Senjutsu. No wonder you were able to navigate here without any trouble," Curoto remarked with a knowing expression. Kabuto was taken aback by Kuroto's words and asked cautiously, "You can tell that I have mastered Senjutsu?" Curoto responded, not denying Kabuto's statement, "Yes, I do have some knowledge about Senjutsu, so I noticed." He then shifted the conversation, probing further, and asked, "So, what brings you back to Konoha? Sneaking into the village late at night and coming directly here. I am curious to know what prompted you to take such a significant risk." A faint smile played on Kabuto's lips as he replied, "It is not me who wishes to speak to you, Hokage-sama. Someone else desires an audience with you." With that, he closed his eyes, and upon reopening them, his pupils, expression, and aura underwent a profound transformation. It was as if a different being had taken control of Kabuto's body. Curoto instantly recognized the distinct aura and blinked in surprise. "Orochimaru-sama?" As Curoto identified the individual, raspy laughter resonated. "Curoto-kun, who would have thought that while I was preoccupied with something else, you would end up becoming the Hokage?" "Well, circumstances led me here," Curoto replied, a tinge of concern furrowing his brow. "However, I did not anticipate seeing you in this state. Have you taken over Kabuto's body?" He shook his head slightly, correcting himself, "No, it seems the 2 of you are coexisting within the same body." Orochimaru chuckled, as sharp as ever, "Curoto-kun." A teasing smile graced Kuroto's lips. "The fact that you are willing to coexist with someone suggests that you have made a grave mistake, isn't that right, Orochimaru-sama?" Chapter 881 The Fragile Immortality. Recalling the abrupt disappearance of Kabuto from the Konoha Ninja Academy without any prior notice or statement, and Orochimaru's ignominious predicament where he is compelled to coexist in Kabuto's body like a parasitic entity, Curoto understood that Orochimaru must have committed a grievous error, otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a deplorable state. Back when they were still aiding Danzo in the Kekkei Genkai absorption ritual, Orochimaru had set his sights on Danzo's perfect physique, and to obtain it, he went as far as clandestinely implanting a cursed seal inside the old man, aiming to corrode his soul using natural energy and seize the perfect body. It's regrettable that Orochimaru overestimated himself and underestimated both Danzo and the power of the Kekkei Genkai absorption ritual. The cursed seal Orochimaru secretly embedded in Danzo's body not only failed to erode his soul but also enabled Danzo to some extent, successfully complete the ritual and become an exemplary shinobi, which further wrought havoc upon the 5 great shinobi villages. Had it not been for Kakashi severing the chakra absorption network outside the volcano, Danzo was determined to fully absorb the chakra of 1,500 shinobi, even if it meant their demise. Should he have succeeded, there was a high likelihood that the yin and yang chakra within his being would have melted completely, potentially awakening the renegade on that day, leading to even greater turmoil. Fortunately, none of those cataclysmic events came to pass, and Curoto managed to put an end to Danzo before he could unleash any substantial devastation upon the shinobi world. Moreover, it's not as though Curoto gained nothing from that entire debacle. Alongside the invaluable data, Curoto also procured a pair of Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, which he later fused with his existing pair to create a pair of Rinnegan for his backup plan. Given his subsequent acquisitions, Curoto harbored no anger towards Orochimaru for the trouble caused. Instead, he was intrigued to discover what had truly befallen Orochimaru to leave him in such an ignominious state. Hearing Kuroto's derision, Orochimaru remained unperturbed and calmly confessed with a sigh, "I had an unfortunate encounter with Shimura Danzo not long ago." Orochimaru's words caught Curoto off guard. He hadn't anticipated Orochimaru's straightforward admission. As Curoto expressed his surprise, Orochimaru continued, "The rumors he spread regarding a flaw in his soul were all false. His condition appears to be perfectly intact, and as for his strength, I dare say it is second only to that of Yama of Amitsukami and Nagato of Akatsuki, and he definitely surpasses them in terms of the threat level." "Why am I not surprised?" nodded Curoto, making no effort to conceal his astonishment. He added, "However, he seems to have vanished. The 5 great nations have been collectively searching for him for the past few months, yet there have been no traces thus far. Do you happen to know his whereabouts or what might be the cause of his disappearance?" "Maybe Amitsukami." Orochimaru pondered silently, opting not to disclose their involvement in this matter, as it could potentially bring about future complications. As far as Orochimaru was aware, the higher-ups in Konoha seemed to have some affiliation with Amitsukami. If their connection to Danzo's affair were revealed, it might also expose Orochimaru's involvement. Moreover, aside from the 5 great shinobi nations, there was a possibility that Amitsukami would also target him, a predicament he wished to avoid in his current state. With that in mind, Orochimaru nonchalantly shrugged and responded, "I have no inkling of his whereabouts or the possible cause of his disappearance." "I see. Well, that's a letdown," Curoto nodded, his expression pensive. He then changed the subject. "In any case, what brings you to Konoha? Furthermore, why are you here to meet me?" "I am here to retrieve something of utmost importance," Orochimaru answered with a solemn demeanor. "Retrieve something?" Curoto murmured, his confusion evident. He glanced toward the main gate and queried, "Retrieve what exactly?" "On the night when Konoha was attacked by the Akatsuki organization, I left a fragment of my chakra in Anko's body in the form of a cursed seal. I intend to reclaim that chakra." "I hope you don't mind my retrieving it," Orochimaru explained. The matter of the cursed seal Orochimaru had placed upon Anko was not a secret within Konoha. Most of the higher-ups were aware of it. However, unlike others, Curoto knew the true capabilities of that cursed seal and how Orochimaru could exploit it to steal someone else's body. Currently, Orochimaru was coexisting with Kabuto, and he undoubtedly required a new vessel. Anko, being a viable candidate, made Curoto somewhat skeptical of Orochimaru's intentions. Observing Kuroto's suspicious expression, Orochimaru offered a helpless smile and reassured, "You needn't be suspicious. I merely wish to retrieve my chakra. I have no ulterior motives this time." Orochimaru's words held no falsehood. He genuinely had no hidden agenda. His primary purpose in coming, or rather, sneaking, to Konoha was to reclaim his chakra and the portion of his soul sealed within Anko's body. It wasn't just Anko. Over the past few days, Orochimaru had retrieved all the chakra he had imbued into others' bodies. Although this would diminish his chances of attaining eternal life, he remained resolute in his decision. The reason behind his determination to recover his chakra from others' bodies stemmed from his realization of his own weaknesses after nearly succumbing to Shimura Danzo's assault. Orochimaru had come to understand the vulnerabilities within his soul caused by employing the living corpse reincarnation jutsu. While the living corpse reincarnation jutsu granted him immortality, it rendered him exceedingly susceptible to soul-based attacks. This was evidenced by his feeble resistance against Danzo's technique, which had nearly claimed his life. Consequently, upon regaining consciousness, his first priority was to retrieve his chakra and soul fragments from the bodies of others. Contemplating Orochimaru's words, Curoto mused, if he harbored ulterior motives, he could have pursued them without disclosing his intentions to me. Since Orochimaru-sama has directly approached me, it appears he truly has no hidden agenda. He nodded and called for Anko. Anko, come inside. Following Curoto's command, Anko arrived in the courtyard and cast a frown in Kabuto's direction. She sensed a peculiar familiarity emanating from him but struggled to articulate it, regarding him warily. Turning to Curoto, she queried, Curoto-kun, what do you want me to do? Curoto replied, just remain here for a while. Kabuto is going to nullify the cursed seal on your neck. Nullify the cursed seal? Anko muttered in surprise, her gaze skeptical as she observed Kabuto. Can this traitor truly accomplish such a feat? Her doubts were not unwarranted, even Tsunade Heim had been unable to mitigate the effects of the cursed seal. Anko questioned Kabuto's capability to resolve it. Yes, he can, Curoto affirmed. Though still harboring doubts, Anko, trusting Curoto, refrained from further inquiry and nodded, saying, very well. She stood her ground, fixing her gaze upon Kabuto. Kabuto, embodying Orochimaru, wasted no time and approached Anko with a benign smile. As he reached her, he pressed his hand against her neck, cautioning, you might experience some discomfort. He then began to absorb the chakra infused within the cursed seal. Anko nodded as she felt the cursed seal warm under Kabuto's touch. Meanwhile, utilizing his Byakugan, Curoto scrutinized the entire process. He witnessed the foreign and restless chakra residing within Anko's body converge toward the cursed seal on her neck before transferring into Kabuto's form. As Kabuto siphoned off all the chakra, Anko suddenly felt drained, succumbing to unconsciousness and collapsing onto the ground. Simultaneously, along with the absorbed chakra, Orochimaru gained access to Anko's memories, acquainting himself with the tense situation festering within Konoha. A sly grin crept across his face as he locked eyes with Curoto and taunted, it appears your predicament is quite precarious, Curoto-kun, TSK, the looming possibility of the Uchiha's coup d'état. I wonder what you intend to do about it. Chapter 882 The Tradition of Killing Sensei. After his physical body had been slain by Shimura Danzo, Orochimaru found himself oblivious to the changes occurring in the shinobi world. Though he could passively glean information through the cursed seal implanted in various individuals, it proved insufficient for him to grasp the overall situation. Upon returning through Kabuto's body, Orochimaru did learn of the big changes transpiring in the shinobi world. He discovered that in a surprising turn of events, Curoto had ascended to the position of Godame Hokage of Konoha. However, even with this newfound knowledge, he still lacked a comprehensive understanding of the unfolding events. Only now, after reclaiming his chakra from Anko's body, did Orochimaru fully comprehend the situation and perceive the predicament faced by Curoto and the Hokage faction. Realizing this, a chuckle escaped Orochimaru's lips. Humiliated in such a manner, the Uchiha clan will not remain silent. Is Sarutobi-sensei prepared to confront 3 Mangekyo Sharingan users? He mused. Then, with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, as if remembering something overlooked, he added, oh, how could I forget? Instead of 3, it should be 4 Mangekyo Sharingan users. Observing Orochimaru's performance, Curoto feigned surprise and inquired with a furrowed brow, what do you mean by 4 Mangekyo Sharingan users? Aren't there only 3? Uchiha Patriarch, Uchiha Shinichi, and Uchiha Shisui? Upon hearing Kuroto's astonishment, a cunning smile crept across Orochimaru's face as he responded, no, there there are indeed 4 Mangekyo Sharingan users, another Uchiha has awakened those eyes. He then playfully continued, dealing with 4 of them. Konoha lacks the strength for such a task. If you wish, I can lend my assistance. My only condition is that I require 1 pair of those Sharingan for research. Surely, it isn't too much to ask, is it? Curoto was well aware that Orochimaru was referring to Itachi. Apart from the members of Amitsukami, Orochimaru knew about Uchiha Itachi's awakening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. In fact, Orochimaru himself played a pivotal role in Itachi's initial awakening of this power. However, Orochimaru's desire for Itachi's body and his Sharingan remained an undisclosed secret. Alas, the more Orochimaru coveted the Uchiha clan and their ocular abilities, the more he suffered. This was true in the original canon and remained so in this altered reality, suffering at the hands of Shinichi, suffering at the hands of Itachi, and suffering at the hands of Danzo. Hearing Orochimaru's proposition, Curoto shook his head and firmly stated, "There is no need. The current Konoha does not require your intervention, Orochimaru-sensei. You should focus on your own endeavors, especially on getting a body for yourself, and refrain from interfering in Konoha's internal affairs." The stage had been meticulously set, and each participant had been assigned their role. At this late stage of the grand play, Curoto found no suitable part for Orochimaru to play. Therefore, he saw no reason for Orochimaru to involve himself in Konoha's affairs, as it could disrupt his carefully laid plans. Woo-woo! Just as Curoto firmly rejected Orochimaru's proposal, a piercing siren echoed through the village, instantly alerting everyone to the intrusion. Immediately, Kurenai appeared beside Curoto and swiftly reported the situation. "Hokage-sama, the patrol team has detected an intruder within the village," she informed, her gaze briefly flickering towards Kabuto, the said trespasser, and the unconscious Anko. Curoto directed his questioning gaze toward Orochimaru. "Did you kill someone?" he inquired, his tone laced with suspicion. Orochimaru calmly shook his head. "No, I merely rendered them unconscious," he clarified. Satisfied with the response, Curoto nodded and turned his attention to Kurenai. "Cease the alarm, and ensure that Anko is taken inside. Yui will attend to her," he instructed in a composed demeanor. Kurenai nodded in acknowledgement. "Understood," she replied before disappearing to carry out Curoto's orders. The alarms were promptly silenced, and Anko was gently escorted into the safety of another room to recuperate. As Kurenai departed with Anko, Orochimaru locked his gaze onto Curoto and spoke, his eyes carrying a subtle hint of persuasion. "I suggest you reconsider my proposal, for it would be mutually advantageous," he suggested, attempting to weave his charms. Leaving those words hanging in the air, Orochimaru turned on his heels and began making his way out of the house, leaving Curoto to contemplate his proposition. Observing Orochimaru's departure, Curoto regarded him with a solemn expression and responded, "Orochimaru-sensei. Senjutsu undoubtedly holds great power, but it will not make you or Kabuto invincible. And now that you are retrieving your soul fragments, you are all the more vulnerable to death." He continued, his tone sincere and earnest, "Sensei, I have no desire to take your life. Therefore, I kindly request that you refrain from meddling in Konoha's internal affairs. Within Konoha, it's a tradition to kill their sensei. In the canon, Yondaime perished due to Obito's actions, Sandaime fell at Orochimaru's hands, Jiraiya succumbed to death while fighting Nagato, and Orochimaru himself met his end in an attempt to take over Sasuke's body, whom he taught personally for nearly 3 years. Curoto wished to avoid following this grim tradition unless absolutely unavoidable, thus, he issued a warning to Orochimaru. Pausing in his tracks upon hearing Curoto's words, Orochimaru cast a fleeting glance towards the distant Hokage rock, where Curoto's face was being carved beside Yondaime's. He let out a sigh before responding, "Very well." With a mix of resignation and respect towards his disciple, he added, "I may not have achieved the position of Hokage, but you have fulfilled the longing I once harbored. I have no desire to witness your death. The Uchiha clan is not to be trifled with, so tread cautiously in whatever you are planning." Curoto nodded, accepting the cautionary words. "I will keep that in mind," he affirmed. And remember, Uchiha Itachi, the fourth individual in the clan to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, is distinct from the others. He is astute, frigid, and resolute. Dealing with him will prove to be the greatest challenge. Perhaps far more than Uchiha Fugaku, Uchiha Shisui, and Uchiha Shinichi. Do not drop your guard at any cost, Kuroto-kun, Orochimaru warned before vanishing into the shadows, leading Curoto to reflect on his words. I know, sensei, said Curoto, staring at the empty spot Orochimaru stood at until a moment ago. Uchiha District. Whoosh! And Uchiha Jonin swiftly entered Fugaku's study and delivered his report. Fugaku-sama, the alarm has been deactivated. It was merely a test to assess the alarm system's effectiveness. No intruders were detected within the village. After a moment of silence, Fugaku nodded in acknowledgement. Understood. You may withdraw. The Uchiha Jonin complied with a respectful nod. As you command, he uttered before disappearing from sight. Returning his attention to the 6 individuals seated before him, Fugaku resumed his role as the leader of the Uchiha clan. These 6 individuals, apart from Fugaku himself, comprised the pinnacle of the clan's combat prowess. Fugaku had summoned them to his study to discuss the matter of a coup d'état. Although the sudden alarm had momentarily interrupted their meeting, now that they knew it was a false alarm, they could proceed with their deliberations. At this juncture, one of the 7 individuals, Uchiha Yusuke, spoke up. Fugaku-sama, I have verified the news. The other Kages will be departing the village by the end of this month. Fugaku's expression remained cold as he responded, they have overstayed their welcome in Konoha. It is time for them to leave. The purpose of the other Kage's visit to Konoha had been to discuss strategies to counter Shimura Danzo and the Akatsuki organization's assault on Iwagakure. However, despite months of searching, the 5 great shinobi villages had been unable to locate any trace of Shimura Danzo. Furthermore, the Akatsuki had inexplicably fallen into silence following their attack on Iwagakure. As a result, the Gakage conference proved fruitless. With no immediate actions to be taken, it was only natural for the other Kages to return to their respective villages. Uchiha Minoru spoke up with a solemn expression, conveying the sentiment of the entire Uchiha clan. Fugaku-sama, the voice of the entire clan is unified, and I believe the time has come for us to take action. Fugaku nodded with hardened resolve. The day the other Kages depart shall be the day we make our move. Chapter 883, The Plan. The day the other Kages depart shall be the day we initiate our action, Fugaku declared, his eyes brimming with hatred and anger. In Canon, Fugaku was unjustly held responsible for the Uchiha clan's planned coup, despite his intentions not being as resolute as his clan members. However, the current circumstances have altered the situation. Fugaku's humiliation and mockery during the vote of confidence have kindled an indomitable rage within him. Such shame is intolerable even for someone as indecisive as Fugaku, particularly considering his proximity to achieving the position of Hokage. Once the flames of ambition are ignited, they are challenging to extinguish. Moreover, the Uchiha clan's present strength and prestige exceed that of the Canon. This further fuels Fugaku's refusal to accept such humiliation, intensifying his determination to rebel. With Fugaku expressing his coup intentions, the elite members of the Uchiha clan, excluding 3 individuals, were instantly filled with excitement. Very well, exclaimed one. Finally, we can retaliate, cried another. I've had enough of those scoundrels, it's time for them to witness the fury of the Uchiha, declared a third. As the excitement gradually subsided, Fugaku shifted the conversation, asking, have the tasks I assigned been completed? Uchiha Minoru nodded and reported, I have followed your instructions, Fugaku-sama, and visited the Konoha prison. I have made a deal with the incarcerated shinobi there. They are willing to support us as long as we free them. The majority of these prisoners have been locked away for years, so it's expected that they have lost much of their strength. While they may not provide significant assistance in the coup, if strategically utilized, they can become a troublesome force. Fugaku was satisfied with Minoru's work and commended him, saying, good. He then turned his attention to his second subordinate. Uchiha Naoto continued, "As per your instructions, I have covertly recruited a group of bounty hunters and wandering swordsmen for our cause. Their numbers are more than sufficient, and they can serve as cannon fodder to distract the other Chunin and Genin. Despite the Uchiha clan's abundance of elite members, their numbers of Chunin and Genin are not enough to contend with Konoha village's entire military force, including the ANBU." Fugaku, unwilling to sacrifice his own men as mere pawns, went to the extent of recruiting hundreds of Genin and Chunin-level bounty hunters, rogue shinobi, and wandering swordsmen. Fugaku nodded in satisfaction and acknowledged their efforts, saying, "Very good." He then turned his attention to his third subordinate. Uchiha Tanaka expressed his apology, "Forgive me, Fugaku-sama, for I have failed. I attempted to establish contact with Deidara, but he denied any affiliation with Amitsukami and was unwilling to help us get in touch with them. It seems we won't be able to convince those two Homusubi to join our cause." It was known that two members of Amitsukami had Uchiha lineage and had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. Fugaku had hoped to enlist their aid in the coup, believing that their involvement would strengthen the Uchiha clan and facilitate the overthrow of the Hokage faction. However, contacting Amitsukami seemed impossible without their voluntary cooperation. The only hope lay with Deidara, who was rumored to be associated with Dojin, but since he denied being Dojin, it was impossible to ascertain his true identity. Realizing that this part of the plan wouldn't work, Fugaku waved it off, saying, "Forget it, let's focus on other matters. We will address the matter of Amitsukami later." His expression turned solemn as he continued, "Now, let us discuss the battle plan. In order for the coup to succeed, we must target 3 key points: Godame Hokage Hyuga Curoto, Sandame Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, as well as the 2 members of the Elder Council, Udatain Koharu and Senju Tsunade. Additionally, we must breach Hatake Kakashi and the ANBU base. Once these 3 targets are successfully dealt with, we won't need to worry about the rest." Upon hearing Fugaku's words, Uchiha Tanaka spoke up, "Fugaku-sama, please allow me to handle Hyuga Curoto. He has repeatedly humiliated the Uchiha in the past, and he needs to face the consequences." Tanaka's words made Fugaku enter a contemplative state. From his perspective, although Hyuga Curoto might not be as strong as himself or Shursui, he possessed considerable skill and cunning. After all, Curoto had not only defeated Shursui but had also bested 8 Jonin-level Uchiha members a few years ago. Fugaku recognized the possibility that Tanaka might not be able to swiftly deal with Curoto. Observing Fugaku's hesitation, Tanaka quickly interjected, "Fugaku-sama, I take responsibility for my previous failure. Please allow me to redeem myself by putting an end to Hyuga Curoto. I swear on the name of the Uchiha that I will kill him." However, before Tanaka could finish his vow, Itachi, who had remained silent throughout, interrupted, "Oda-sama, let me handle Godame Hokage." Noticing Itachi's desire to take on the task of killing Godame Hokage, Fugaku pondered for a moment before nodding, "Very well. Itachi, I entrust his fate to you." Fugaku believed that Itachi possessed the intellect to outmaneuver Hyuga Curoto swiftly. Fugaku was well aware of Itachi's capabilities. Although Itachi lacked the Mangekyo Sharingan, he excelled in all other aspects, surpassing any other Uchiha clan member, including Shursui. Fugaku even contemplated whether Shursui's strategic mind surpassed his own, musing, "I wonder how Itachi developed such remarkable strategic prowess." It was clear to Fugaku that Itachi's brilliance stemmed from his own natural talent, rather than any influence from himself or Shursui. Confident in Itachi's abilities, Fugaku assigned the task of dealing with Hyuga Curoto to his eldest son. He then turned to Tanaka and instructed, "You will be in charge of the ANBU base." "As you command," Tanaka replied, showing no signs of disappointment. Next, Fugaku directed his attention to Naoto and issued the order, "You will take control of important facilities, including the Sealing Department, Intelligence Department, Konoha Hospital, and Konoha Ninja Academy." "Understood," Naoto nodded in acknowledgement. Fugaku then turned his gaze to Minoru and tasked him with handling the Inoshikacho, Sarutobi clan, and the villagers, emphasizing, "I don't want their interference." Consider it done, Fugaku-sama, Minoru affirmed with a nod. Finally, Fugaku's intense gaze settled on Shisui and Shinichi as he spoke in a deep voice. Shisui, Shinichi, the two of you will accompany me to deal with Itachi Kakashi, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Udatain Koharu. Although aged, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Udatain Koharu could pose a challenge, not to mention Tsunade with her medical ninjutsu, Jiraiya with his sage techniques, and Kakashi with his flying thunder god. It was crucial for the success of the coup to neutralize them, which is why the three strongest members of the Uchiha clan would confront them. Shinichi and Shisui exchanged a glance and nodded in unison, affirming, "We understand." Suddenly, Minoru interjected, "Fugaku-sama, we must also consider the Hyuga clan. They are unlikely to remain passive and will likely interfere." The others concurred with nods, as Fugaku had not mentioned anything about the Hyuga clan thus far. Hearing the mention of the Hyuga clan, Fugaku chuckled and stated, "There is no need to worry about the Hyuga clan. It seems that someone else holds a grudge against them and will take care of those individuals." Upon hearing the mention of an unknown ally, Shisui, Shinichi, and Itachi froze and questioned in unison, "Oto-sama, do we have additional allies supporting us?" Chapter 884 Hokage's Hand. "Oto-sama, do we have additional allies supporting us?" Itachi inquired once again, noticing Fugaku's contemplation. Recalling the encounter with the puppeteer earlier, Fugaku's face displayed a mix of lingering embarrassment and fury. He had never expected to be effortlessly defeated by a mere puppet, especially considering his possession of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Determined to exact revenge once he had utilized this individual, a surge of killing intent emanated from Fugaku's eyes. Taken aback by the intensity of Fugaku's expression, Itachi persisted, "Oto-sama, are there other forces cooperating with us in the coup?" The other Uchiha elites present in the room directed their gazes towards Fugaku, awaiting his response. Although the Uchiha clan members were fervently advocating for rebellion, firmly believing in their ability to take over the village, the clan's leadership understood the formidable power of the Hokage faction. Despite having 3 Mangekyo Sharingan users on their side, the success rate of their coup was still less than 50%. That is precisely why the Uchiha clan sought the aid of rogue shinobi and bounty hunters, going so far as to release imprisoned shinobi in order to keep the other clans occupied. While the Uchiha clan may be the strongest in Konoha, they were not sufficiently powerful to subdue the combined forces of the Hokage faction and the other clans. The elites in the meeting were cognizant of this limitation, which amplified their excitement upon learning about the potential of additional allies. They were eager to discover who was supporting their cause. Observing the doubtful expressions on everyone's faces, Fugaku spoke sternly, "Focus on the tasks assigned to you. As for the other matters, you don't need to know and shouldn't concern yourselves with them." Taken aback by Fugaku's stern tone, the Uchiha elites nodded in understanding and said, "We understand." Fugaku's words confirmed the existence of additional allies supporting them. Although Fugaku did not disclose their identities, the Uchiha elites had no qualms about being kept in the dark. Simply knowing that they had allies was more than enough for them. Fugaku then turned to his son and said, "Itachi, while Godame may not be the strongest, he can be cunning. If you don't deal with him swiftly, everything we've planned could be in vain. He has the potential to rally the entire village against us, something we absolutely cannot afford. Your role is of utmost importance. Focus solely on that, and leave the rest to me." "I understand, Oto-sama," Itachi nodded, reassuring his father, "I will ensure that we overcome the greatest obstacle we Uchiha face." A smile crept onto Fugaku's face as he responded, "Good." Without further ado, he turned his attention to Shisui, who had remained silent throughout, briefly shook his head, and addressed everyone, "All right, everyone. Prepare yourselves for what lies ahead. This will be a do-or-die situation for us. We cannot afford any mistakes." There was a significant reason why Fugaku ensured Shisui remained by his side on the night of rebellion. In Fugaku's mind, the Hokage faction had not only humiliated the Uchiha clan but had also employed underhanded tactics to prevent the Uchiha from ascending to the position of Hokage. Fugaku believed that Shisui should no longer align himself with the Hokage faction and should support their cause. The only concern was Shirsui's personal relationship with Godame Hokage. If Shisui were to encounter Hyuga Curoto, Fugaku feared he might hesitate or even change his mind, something they couldn't afford. Therefore, Shisui would act alongside him, and Fugaku made sure that Shinichi would keep a watchful eye over Shisui to prevent any interaction with Godame during this critical period. As Fugaku watched his trusted confidants exit the study one by one, he gazed at the scenery outside the window and thought to himself with a determined expression, "I will undoubtedly lead the Uchiha clan to make history." Early the following morning, Curoto made a startling announcement that sent shockwaves throughout Konoha. Utilizing his authority as the Godame Hokage, he introduced a completely unprecedented position of power called the Hokage's Hand. This role, second only to the Hokage, served as the Hokage's spokesperson and held the second highest authority in the village. However, the Hokage's Hand lacked decision-making power and primarily acted as the Hokage's assistant. The Hokage's Hand was responsible for assisting the Hokage in managing village affairs and possessed the authority to govern in the Hokage's absence. Additional regulations were implemented for this position. Each Hokage had the right to choose their own Hokage's Hand. In the event of the Hokage's unforeseen demise, the current Hokage's Hand would continue serving for 1 year to assist the new Hokage before resigning. The new Hokage would then have the freedom to select their own personal Hokage's Hand. Kuroto's creation of the Hokage's Hand position was driven by two reasons. Firstly, it fulfilled the agreement he made with the Sandaime Hokage. Sandaime having completed his side of the deal, Curoto felt obligated to honor their agreement. Secondly, Curoto intended to delegate the less important tasks of the Hokage to the Hokage's Hand, allowing him to focus his attention on his paramount project, Project Godhood. Curoto considered this project to be of utmost importance and would prioritize it over his role as Hokage without hesitation. Curoto understood that completing his project and attaining Kekkei would grant him unparalleled power and the ability to attain anything he desired in the world. Even something as absurd as unifying the shinobi world under one nation wouldn't be impossible. Of course, he wouldn't do something so tasteless. Curoto knew it would be within his reach once he possessed such power. Thus, he created the position of Hokage's Hand with these goals in mind. Upon learning of the Hokage's Hand position, the Sandaime and other elders of the Hokage faction experienced a mixture of surprise and relief. They had been concerned about the possibility of Curoto reneging on their verbal agreement, as there was no written contract to bind him. Power has the potential to corrupt individuals and instill greed and ambition, and not everyone can be like Jiraiya and Tsunade, hence the worry. However, the creation of the Hokage's Hand position alleviated their worries, reaffirming their belief that supporting Curoto was the right decision. While most of the shinobi clan's patriarchs were initially surprised by the introduction of the Hokage's Hand position, they accepted it without much resistance, as it seemed to align with their expectations. They recognized that although Hyuga Curoto held the title of Godame Hokage, his authority was not absolute. The main governance of Konoha would still remain in the hands of the elders, and the presence of the Hokage's Hand position served as evidence of this. Furthermore, Curoto's affiliation with the branch family of the Hyuga clan factored into their acceptance. Should anything happen to Curoto due to the cursed Juinjutsu on his forehead, the Hokage's Hand would be ready to assume the responsibilities of village affairs. Not to mention, the ever-looming threat of the Akatsuki organization also played a role in the establishment of the Hokage's Hand position. Even in the event of the Hokage's absence due to Akatsuki-related circumstances, the Hokage's Hand would step in to manage the situation. However, the Uchiha clan did not take kindly to the news of the Hokage's Hand position. For them, it meant that even if the Hokage were to perish, the village would not be left without leadership, as the Hokage's Hand would seamlessly take over until a new Hokage was properly elected. This realization prompted a shift in their strategy, with Hatake Kakashi, Kuroto's chosen Hokage's Hand, becoming one of their prime targets for their revised deployment. Chapter 885 The Double Agent. Irika approached Curoto and humbly requested, "Hokage-sama, may I have your instructions? The assessment is about to commence." Observing the students in the playground as they prepared themselves for what lay ahead, Curoto nodded approvingly. "Very well, let us begin." Irika nodded in acknowledgement and then proclaimed to the students on the playground, "The school's monthly assessment will consist of a battle drill, and I will now announce the pairings. Hyuga Niji vs. Rock Lee. Uchiha Sasuke vs. Uzumaki Naruto. Hyuga Hinata vs. Cheyenne. Uchiha Kiyomi vs. Shimizu Maya. Haruno Sakura vs. Yamanaka Ino. Aburame Shino vs. Nara Shikamaru. Inazuka Kiba vs. Akimichi Choji. Kurama Yakumo vs. Tintin. Sai vs. Shin. After Irika announced the list of matches for the first round, the trainees readied themselves to face their respective opponents. Perhaps due to the presence of Curoto, the Hokage, the children appeared remarkably enthusiastic and eager to give their all. Witnessing this scene, Curoto's face lit up with a smile. Ever since he appointed Kakashi as the Hokage's hand, Curoto had delegated most of the minor official duties to Kakashi and the members of the Elder Council, lightening the burden on his shoulders. Even his Hokage guard platoon was no longer by his side. Instead, they followed and protected Yui, per his strict orders. Consequently, Curoto found himself with an abundance of spare time to engage in activities he enjoyed. At present, he was simply passing the time by visiting the Konoha Ninja Academy to observe the progress of Konoha's future pillars. In this manner, days turned into weeks, and time slipped away unnoticed. Besides the occasional discussion about the ongoing carving of Curoto's face on the Hokage rock, which intrigued the villagers, the newly appointed Hokage was no longer the talk of the town. The aftermath and lively atmosphere of the Godame Hokage election had gradually subsided, and the village had returned to its daily routine. However, those with keen observation skills sensed that this apparent calm was merely the calm before the storm, as an undercurrent was brewing. The Uchiha clan's passive response upon returning to their clan district after their defeat signaled their planning for something significant that would impact the entire village. Consequently, the top management of the Hokage faction convened daily meetings in recent days to deliberate possible countermeasures. Curoto did attend the initial few meetings. After all, he was the Godame Hokage and was expected to participate in these secretive gatherings. However, as the discussions revolved around the same tedious issues and countermeasures each time, his boredom eventually got the better of him, and he became too lethargic to attend. While the Elder Council expressed disappointment at Curoto's lack of interest in such a critical matter, deep down, they didn't truly anticipate Curoto to resolve this predicament. Consequently, they didn't attach much significance to his absence either. And so, the days slipped away, and before anyone realized, 2 weeks had elapsed, approaching the end of the month, signifying the time for the other Kages to return to their respective villages. Hokage Building, Konohagakure. Uchiha Izumi entered Elder Sarutobi Hiruzen's office with trepidation, and all eyes in the room turned toward her the moment she appeared. At that moment, Tsunade inquired, "Izumi, have there been any developments?" Izumi nodded, her voice somewhat faltering as she replied, "The time for the rebellion is set at the end of this month, coinciding with the departure of the other Kages from the village." Sandaime took a slow draw from his pipe and uttered softly, "So, it has truly come to this." Upon hearing Izumi's report, the faces of the others in Elder Hiruzen's office grew somber. While they had long anticipated the Uchiha clan's rebellion, the actual arrival of this day left them with complex emotions, unsure of the rightness or wrongness of their forthcoming actions. Observing the silent atmosphere in the office, Izumi tearfully spoke, "Could there possibly be no chance for redemption?" Tsunade let out a sigh and shook her head. The situation had reached a point where one side had to unequivocally admit defeat, and neither the Hokage faction nor the Uchiha clan would willingly concede. Elder Koharu inquired, "What are their specific plans? Have you discovered anything?" Izumi nodded, relaying all the details she had gleaned from Itachi regarding the rebellion. As the occupants of Elder Hiruzen's office learned about the Uchiha clan's intention to infiltrate Konoha prison and employ a group of hired mercenaries, ronin, and rogue samurai from outside the village, a collective frown appeared on their faces. The Uchiha clan's preparations were evidently far more substantial than they had anticipated. Kakashi remarked, "If we allow them to complete these preparations, the situation will become dire." Jiraiya nodded, "While those prisoners, mercenaries, Ronin, and rogues may not possess great individual strength. If they are allowed to sow chaos throughout the village, we will need to double our forces to swiftly quell them. Otherwise, they can cause significant harm to both the people and property within the village. Elder Koharu spoke up. This is where the Uchiha clan has shown their cunning. Once this ragtag army is unleashed, unlike true shinobi, they will not hesitate to harm innocent villagers. While they may be weak, if we fail to disperse our forces to address this in due time, the casualties will be incalculable. We must not allow them to breach the village walls under any circumstances. She then turned to Elder Hiruzen and said, Hiruzen, the Uchiha clan poses a grave threat. We cannot afford to be passive this time. Hiruzen sighed. I understand. If Danzo were present, faced with such a situation, he would propose dealing with the entire Uchiha clan before they could strike. Hiruzen was well aware that it was the safest course of action, but preemptive strikes against the Uchiha clan before they officially rebelled would undoubtedly bring about great trouble. Given the current reputation of the Hokage faction, they could ill afford such a loss of trust. Moreover, if no one else raised the idea, it would not be wise for him to broach the subject either. After all, apart from Danzo, nobody else was willing to bear the blame for slaughtering fellow village ninjas without just cause. Sensing Yui's anxiety, who was attending the meeting in place of Curoto, Tsunade quickly reassured her, Do not fret, everything will pass. After some time, Sandaime handed a document to Izumi. This contains the layout and deployment plans of various institutions within the village. Take it with you. Since the Hokage faction was utilizing Izumi's position as Uchiha Itachi's betrothed to gather internal information on the Uchiha clan, in turn, was using her status as Tsunade Heime's disciple to acquire intelligence on the Hokage faction. Thus, Uchiha Izumi served as a double agent, loyal to both her clan and the Hokage faction. To ensure Izumi could continue extracting covert information regarding Uchiha's rebellion, the Hokage faction needed to provide her with some insider knowledge in order to maintain the other side's trust. After receiving the documents handed to her by Sandaime, Izumi turned and departed, her expression filled with sorrow. Am I to be the lone Uchiha who betrays her clan? Is this truly the right path for me? If Itachi-kun were to discover my treachery, he would never forgive me. Uchiha District, Konohagakure. Shinichi, Shursui, and Itachi convened at the secluded training ground of the Uchiha clan. Assured that they were not being observed, Itachi spoke in hushed tones, There is a message from Hokage-sama. Tonight, the three of us shall meet with him to relay the precise details of the deployment. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in part 21. Peace.
Thank you.